Hi, everybody, it's Liam. Before we jump into this week's episode, I'd like to share a review by Levi's Whirling, who I taunted last week or 2 weeks ago about not having written a review, instead sending me a critical text message about Lawrence Tierney and Gloria. Levi's review is from Cortell You Dad. That's his handle, and I got to tell you, Levi is a hell of a dad. He wrote it on March 27th, which was the date of the last episode, if I remember correctly. And the review reads, "Not just for film nerds." It's 5 stars. Thank you, Levi. Liam and George are a riot, and they turned me on to JC. Not that one. And now I want to see all his films. Keep up the good work, guys. You should see all of his films. I recommend Glory of Glories, King of Kings, The 10 Commandments, The Passion of the... Okay. Ha, this is a Jesus joke. Levi, thank you for the review, and thank you for your support, and we're glad you're into Jesus Christ now. I'm not going to keep you guys any longer. We have a long episode ahead, so enjoy this episode, and if you have a chance, please rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. We'll be starting season 2 in the coming weeks, and we want everybody on board. I'm Liam Billingham.
I'm George Fragopoulos.
And I'm Kel Karpinski.
And this is...
Oeuvre.
Busters.
Yay! I still didn't say it! Wow. So, Kel, you watched your first John Cassavetes movie, I think, because of this podcast.
I did, actually.
You're welcome.
Which is amazing. We brought someone into the fold, or
Maybe.
you're welcome, or
maybe.
sorry. You're sorry.
Maybe we're running away.
We're sorry. Which John did you? What was the first John Cassavetes movie you watched?
I watched Husbands.
Impressions.
What did you know about John Cassavetes before you watched Husbands?
Only what I gleaned from your podcast.
Okay.
So a lot.
So a lot of stuff.
A lot of brilliant insights.
You were like, wow, those guys sure say a lot without saying much at all.
They're really smart. That
At
George
work,
guy
they
has-
know words.
That George guy has a great podcasting voice.
Remember when we invited Kel on the show and we didn't let her talk?
It was great.
So what did you think of Husbands?
It was rough.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think your episode about Husbands conveyed how rough it was, because it left me with a sense of wanting to watch it.
Oh, no. That was not our intention.
And then you watched it and you're like, oh
and
my
then
God.
I watched it and I was like, oh.
Now, was it just kind of the politics of it all that was distasteful, or also just because like the running time?
Partially the running time, which
It's very
also
long.
can we when we talk about the movie for this week, I also want to talk about that. There's like a sweet spot from like the late 80s to the mid 90s where all movies are like 90 minutes or
90
under.
minutes.
Yeah.
And because that's many of my formative years, I feel like it spoiled me in some sort of ways. Like, there are definitely good movies that are longer, but when a movie is not good and it's longer than 90 minutes, I'm like, can we wrap this up already?
Yeah. We should
That's
also
fair.
say that today we're going to be talking about Big Trouble, which is Cassavetes' last film.
Slow down.
But we wanted to also just get Kel's impressions on Husbands.
Yeah, of course. It's an important
I'm just letting
thing.
Keith know exactly what we're going to do.
I saw your tweet. That was like, wow, the toxic masculinity in Husbands was off the charts.
Yes.
And I initially got excited because I was like, Kel watched Husbands. And then I was like, oh no, Kel watched Husbands.
And you didn't live tweet it, but there was definitely more than one tweet.
There was
About
yeah. As live tweeting as I get, I feel like I can't keep up. I don't know how people keep up the momentum to live tweet. So there was like 5 or 6
exhausting.
tweets, and then I crashed.
I live tweeted through Miami Vice, the Michael Mann movie.
Oh.
Anyway, so what was your final conclusion? Did you like anything about it? Is it a movie that can be liked?
I don't know if it's a movie that can be liked. I mean, so yeah, listening to the episode, I don't remember what stood out to me, but something was like, Husbands, like, file that away, like, you want to watch that movie, and I like added it to my list of movies to watch. And then George, you tweeted at me that I should make a zine about it because it's incredibly homoerotic, and then I was like, confirmed, I should watch this movie.
Well, and we've talked about it a little bit on that episode too. But especially the Ben Gazzara character has a lot of moments that are like really, really like coded in a very kind of like obvious. Well, I mean, I guess maybe to us, like obviously like queer way.
Mm-hmm.
So any thoughts on like that, on kind of like his love for these other men, or like the way in which these men are loving one another?
Yeah. So I mean, I think that was the most interesting part for me, was like the like homoerotic tension through it all. There's a few things that sort of stand out to me. I mean, like, you know, I think I tweeted like in the first 5 minutes, like Peter Falk's already talking about like wanting to get sweaty with men he loves, and I was like,
oh, that's right.
like from off the bat, he's like, one of the greatest things you can do is like get sweaty with men you want to be with, and I was like, holy shit, like here we
Is
go.
that what he's talking about? Like all this, not the sports stuff, right?
Yeah, it's about all the different sports stuff. They're on the subway, and then sort of
I
like
love baseball.
I love baseball. Like,
and then
you
the
love
next
baseball, Peter Falk.
and then the next scene is like them all sweaty playing basketball together.
And swimming together in the pool.
Yeah, and then there's I also tweeted something about them. I like tweeted something about their undressing Peter Falk, but I don't remember what's actually happening. Do you all?
In the bar scene where he's
Maybe,
getting
yes,
naked?
yes.
Well, he
Okay.
keeps, he does, like, there's the woman, they, like, humiliate that woman who's singing.
Which is
It's
delightful.
It's a really tough scene.
But no, I mean, it was the second time watching it that it really struck me. I was like, oh my God, like these men like love one another. Like they love each other. And there's all...
Yes, it actually, to me, didn't come through the first time, but I don't know if it was just the circumstances under which I saw it or my general, like, not noticing it.
Yeah. Well, also Ben Gazzara has all these moments of like jealous, like he's upset that Peter Falk and Cassavetes are like sharing secrets in the bathroom. Also, there's so many scenes of them all in the bathroom, like bonding together, which I thought was really interesting. And then there were two things about Gazzara that stood out to me. He says something about like, I would be better off going home with a fairy.
Right.
And then also when he's like talking to his wife, he says like, I don't want to be in the closet
I don't want to be in the closet
Yeah.
anymore.
I was like, holy shit.
Which, I don't know. The first time I saw the film, I saw it on the big screen at BAM, and I sort of thought it was, I mean, it's troubling, but it was also like, it was funnier on the big screen. Like it played in this much grander way. Like the scene when they're making everybody sing, I was like, this is like a masterpiece of a scene, and I still think it is, but like I have a very different relationship. It's hard to watch. But also, the whole like, I don't want to be in the closet anymore. I feel like it went past me the first time completely. So seeing it a second time, that's when I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, I was like, did he really just say that?
know.
Like,
I think it's also, it might be difficult to like pick up on that when all the other, let's say like traditionally masculine and shit is so over the top in that film because they're so like bad dudes in so many ways that we now recognize as kind of like toxic masculinity. So I could also see how like some of that subtext could kind of be potentially be lost, especially like on a first viewing.
Yes.
But yeah, so if there's something, let's say subversive or something that's good about the film is like its potential to be read in this queer light. As you were saying earlier, though, there are like these troubling kind of aspects of it, and I want if you wanted to kind of comment on that, or if there's like a specific scene that you have in mind, because I have one in mind that I wonder if it's the one you have in mind.
well, I mean, the film is rampant with toxic masculinity. Like I said, it's like off the charts, and like the scene in the bar where they're all singing and they humiliate that woman, like for sure. And there's like, you know, like Cassavetes is like yelling at her, like keep singing, and Gazzara's like fucking stop, and like going back and
terrible.
forth. Like that is horrible. But then there's also the one that's really troubling to me is the Peter Falk with the Chinese woman. I'm not sure.
Right. Yeah.
Like all of the scenes with her, but like especially like in the rain, like he's I don't even know like what to say about it. Just that like the way he's interacting with her is like horrible. I don't know. I don't even have words for like what's happening.
Yeah. It's funny because the scene before that to me is the
was
worst
the one you were gonna say.
Yeah, which is the one with Cassavetes and the woman in the bedroom where they're like wrestling on the bed.
Oh,
The British lady.
And she keeps telling him to stop.
Yeah, I believe her name is
Yeah.
Mary.
Yeah.
And just
Mary,
goes
that's right.
on and on and on and on. Oh wait, it's still going.
Yeah, it's like still playing.
I think it's still playing right now. Yeah, the film was released in 1970 something, and
Yeah,
it's
it's
still
still
that
going
scene
on.
is still going on. And that was the scene, and I think maybe also by the time the second scene with Falk came around, not that scene isn't terrible,
Yeah.
but I was just kind of so shocked at
You
kind
were,
of
like,
what I just
stunned
seen.
still.
Yeah, that I was like, oh god.
when we
feel like
talked
I'm just glad
about
that scene is done.
scene initially, like we actually, it's the only time we've ever gotten an email from anyone being like, you like kind of critical of us, because like, and I don't think I did a good job of articulating my problem with that scene, which is like, there's that line where it's like he's depicting toxic masculinity and really problematic behavior versus like romanticizing it, and I think that's a tension throughout the movie, but that scene doesn't know when to quit, and it's like almost it's it's not irresponsible. I don't know if that's the right word, but it made me so go like it's like stop. This needs to stop. Like we all get the point. We got the point 10 minutes ago. And then like I feel like there's a lot of people like Cassavetes has this sort of like auteur reputation. It's a lot of people will look at the thing and be like, oh, like he said exactly what and he depicted exactly what he wanted to depict. But I feel like there's no control in the choices made in that scene, and that really, really bothers me.
Yeah. Do you think it's intentionally supposed to make the audience uncomfortable though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. I think I can give him, having now gone through all the films, I feel like I can give him the credit to be self-aware. I did at the beginning of this, I was like, no way. But I think that my experience of it at least has been like, oh, I think there's a much higher level of self-awareness than I think I initially thought there was.
Huh.
I don't know what your feeling is.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. But do you think there are scenes that are just kind of totally toned up?
In that movie?
Well, just in the oeuvre, I use the word, in general.
Ooh, I don't know. That's a really good question.
Because again, those guys are definitely also supposed to be heroic. Might be too strong of a word.
They're not heroic. I don't think.
I mean heroic, but I mean I think also you're obviously supposed to sympathize with them, especially at the end.
Yeah, there's supposed to be something.
Yeah,
there,
especially at the end with the return home and kind of the
Like
return
the renewal.
The banality or kind of their mundane existence.
Shitty kids.
Shitty kid comes out like, "Hey, Mom, Dad's back."
Yeah.
Like who cannot
That
feel
kid
sorry
grew
for
up
that?
that kid grew up to star in Face Off.
Yeah, one of the greatest movies of all time.
Wait, really?
Yeah, John Cassavetes' son Nick is an actor director, and
Liam, I'm gonna take his face.
and he plays a heavy in Face Off, the greatest action movie ever made.
I've never
The
actually
Rock?
seen it, but I'm familiar.
It's second. It's like top 10. But yeah, he's a big, and a director. He made a movie called She's So Lovely, which was based on a John Cassavetes script called She's Still Lovely, that I've never seen, but it has Sean Penn and John Travolta and Robin Wright Penn.
Interesting.
Yeah, so there's a lot of
A lot going on
Sean
there.
Penn. Yikes.
When she was Robin Wright Penn, I can't even say.
I think
it.
she was Robin Wright Penn then. But I don't know if there's anything outright irresponsible. I don't know.
No, I just want to watch The Princess Bride again. I'm sorry.
I feel like there's a whole.
Can we talk about the Princess Bride?
Yeah, we
About how fucking amazing it is. And
Peter
Peter
Falk.
Falk's in it.
No, can we talk about how it's way overrated?
Oh, podcast over.
You can cut this out so that all your listeners don't hate me.
No,
Cutting this out.
You think our listeners care about The Princess Bride? Tell us quickly why.
Just real quick. I think it's fine. I think it's a
Is
fine
it Fred
movie.
Savage? Because you hate Fred Savage.
I actually really like Fred Savage. I find him endearing for
He's
some
very
reason.
endearing. Because he's still that kid
and
from that show.
Yeah,
Wonder
he
Years?
absolutely is.
Working. Yeah, no, the Wonder Years.
But you said that kid from that show. What's it called again?
I just have never felt like the hype and connection that everyone else is. So I
Yeah,
don't
that's
think
fair.
I don't think that it's a horrible movie. I think it's a good movie and I see its merits, but I'm not like, "Oh my god, I love this movie." And I feel like that's really weird for folks of our generation. That like
Yes.
everybody is like, "This is the most amazing movie." And it's like crucial to people's childhood.
There's like
but, it's not.
a serious agreement over that. I feel like that.
Yeah, and I'm not part of it.
No, I think
So
that's fair.
That's fine.
Is that-
I mean, my heart's breaking.
What
That's
I
fine.
found like one other person
Stop
who
it.
agrees with me.
I don't think it's that great. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm sort of with
No,
you.
yeah, it's an excellent.
What's a movie that you
And I also
think?
like love Wallace Shawn, but
Oh, he's the best.
So good.
Yeah.
And Andre the Giant? Come
Andre
on.
the Giant.
And Mandy Patinkin? Fucking cast is killer. What's
Do you know
I went
actually
to
that-
college with his son,
with?
with Mandy Patinkin's son.
Really?
Yeah.
I
Oh.
thought you were going to say with Andre
He's
the
in a
Giant's
band with my
daughter.
friend. No, I wish.
Mandy
Amazing.
Patinkin's kid is just chilling, straight chilling. It's like Dad's got it.
He's
It's
got it. Of
cool.
Wait, do you guys also know about the Andre the Giant story about that Beckett drove him to school?
Yes, because I read the Beckett autobiography. I love that
But
story.
is it true?
So
It's in the autobiography. It's in the biography, not
Biography.
the autobiography. The
what's
autobiography
his
is waiting for
face?
Godot.
The autobiography is one line long. It's like,
I can't think of his
I
name.
wish I'd died
Sports
before I was born.
person made a documentary about Andre the Giant recently.
Oh,
Bill,
yeah, yeah.
Bill.
I think his
Simmons?
name's Bill, yeah.
Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons, yeah. I was gonna look it up.
And he said they couldn't find any evidence, but like I don't want to live in a world where Beckett didn't drive
know.
Andre the Giant to school.
Let's
so
believe, you're right. So any final thoughts on Husbands? Would you recommend somebody watch it?
I don't know if I would recommend it to anyone. I feel like I'm glad I watched it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'd ever watch it again. Maybe under duress.
Do you feel like, and you sort of asked me this question, but do you feel like there's it's a really celebrated movie? Like I don't know if it's the most celebrated of his movies, but like for example, Metrograph, the theater downtown, they pick a film from like every filmmaker, and they like, this is the essential film, and for them, Husbands is the essential film. And I have mixed feelings about that. And like the first time I saw that movie, it was like kind of monumental for me. And rewatching it, I was like, I don't feel the same way about this movie that I did the first time I watched it. And I think some of that is tied up in like having a father who is about the same age as those guys, and like relating to it through this like, I had a father that was like this, maybe not this bad, but definitely raised with the same kind of cultural values and stuff like that. But I guess my question is like, do you feel like and I'd actually, George, I'd like to hear what you think, because we're circling back to it. Do you feel like there's value in what it depicts?
Yes.
Yeah. That's the tough thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's hard because, again, like we're saying, like, you know, I think it's important to depict these depictions
right.
Sorry, I have no words tonight, of toxic masculinity, but like, where is it like you're critiquing it versus you're celebrating it? Like, right. where does you sort of cross the line? Or like, I think about this with like a lot of film and like TV shows too. Like, does your audience know that you're critiquing it? Like, are you actually critiquing it? Like,
what's the line?
Right. Because I feel like if you are going into it, sort of with the idea that it's a critique, if your audience isn't aware of that, then it's not a critique. Like, you're just replicating those same things. Yeah.
I feel that way about like the love that some people hold for a movie like Scarface.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a really good example.
That's I think a greatly overrated movie. Like, I think it's disgusting. I think it's a disgusting movie
because people turn it off about 15 minutes before the end. Like, that's it. This movie's over, right?
Yeah,
She's on top of the world.
Yeah. That's a good point. What do you think in terms of
about Husbands?
Yeah.
Again, I think the first hour is brilliant. There's some really brutal parts in the second half. I do think like its critique of like the banality of conventional kind of like couplings is interesting, even though obviously like the wives don't like play a large role. I think it has like a lot of interesting things also to say about aging, which I didn't realize is like such a prominent theme in so many of Cassavetes' films.
A lot of his movies are about middle-aged people.
Where these three dudes, and they're very much dudes, are trying to kind of cope with their dead friend, or like what that means. And I think it has a lot of interesting things to say about that. Like, I read it as very much like we've talked about this too, of like a very much like kind of like a Beckettian, almost kind of like existentialist drama.
Right.
And
it's very interesting because it's very concrete in its settings.
Yeah, and a lot of that good shit to me obviously gets kind of overwhelmed or kind of effaced by, again, a lot of the shittiness in the second half. And as Kel said, I'm also not totally convinced that there is that much of a critique going on in terms of obviously their behavior. But I could be wrong.
I don't know. Well, I think that that's part of the intention.
It's definitely meant to make you uncomfortable without question.
And I also think he would, this is one of the interesting things about like male filmmakers at that period of time. I feel like if someone asked him, is this a critique? He'd be like, fuck you. I don't care if it's a critique, which I think he's like, I'm depicting real lives. And it's like, that's a much more problematic answer now than it would have been in 1977 or whatever. Yeah.
I also watched some of the Dick Cavett show clips too, which is like also like really painful. And like, I just like pity Dick Cavett. Yeah.
He's so amazing.
Hey, Dick Cavett's mentioned in Big Trouble too.
Yeah. I know, right?
Dick Cavett. No, I really think, I think that's actually like almost as big of a deal. Like the Dick Cavett thing inspired this whole thing, obviously, but like, it's painful, but it was so funny 10 years ago. And now I'm like, oh,
yeah.
You know,
things change.
Hopefully
the more they
for the
change. Better. So are you going to watch, well, you watched at least one more John Cassavetes movies, but do you have like a desire
I was bribed to watch that one, for the record.
You're bribed with your own bourbon.
Here's your bag of money, by the way. Thank you.
Slide it across the table. George, do some Foley.
You said hundreds, right? So
unmarked bills. I think I will. I think it's interesting. Liam, you recommended Gloria, correct? And George recommended Shadows. Is that?
Yeah, that's correct.
Is that correct?
Gloria,
I watched trailers for both of them, and I don't think I can watch Gloria.
Fair.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Shadows is. I'm intrigued.
I think that Shadows is a much more dare I say, like important movie in the
Yeah.
history of movies than Gloria. It's a footnote, but it's so accessible.
Something about the like, I must save this child, like doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah, that's fair.
Sorry, I just don't have.
Well, no, that's totally fair. But it's like I think that
We
what
talked
makes
about
it
that a little
more
bit, too.
accessible is like it's so genre heavy. It's like a real genre movie.
Mm-hmm.
But Shadows is a tough watch. I have to say, it's a
Yeah.
good movie, but it's so dated.
In certain respects. In other respects, I don't think it is. Like, it's not very didactic in terms of like the
No, it's not.
handling of the racial issues. It doesn't like hit you over the
Yeah,
head.
that's true.
It's-
See
it's not-
episode 1 for
It's
more
not Crash.
details.
I don't mean Cronenberg's Crash. I mean the shitty Crash.
I don't mean Cronenberg's Crash, the George Fragopoulos story.
my memoir.
Coming this fall
It's out
from
of my
Bantam
memoir.
Books. Is it Bantam?
Penguin?
Penguin? Oh, it's Penguin. Penguin's
Penguin
published.
Random House.
Yeah, they offered me less money, but more perks.
What were the...
I can't mention them on the air.
They're
this is-
unmentionables?
Yeah, they're unmentionables.
Should we talk about another masterpiece? Wait, but real quick.
Let's hear it.
I wanted,
Even though you hate that
so
word masterpiece.
Kel mentioned, this is completely unrelated. Princess Bride is an overrated movie. What's your like overrated movie that other people love?
Oh shit, that's a very good question. I'm gonna have to.
We have the same answer for this question.
Teenage
It's
Mutant
the
Ninja Turtles?
Boondock Saints.
Oh god, I fucking hate that movie.
I fucking hate.
But
Can we
most
do a
people-
podcast?
Have you seen this movie?
Boondocks?
I have never seen it,
It's
but I have no
atrocious.
intention of. But I enjoyed that you listed the top Boston movies, and it was just
Good Will Hunting.
Good Will
It's
Hunting,
accurate.
And
which
then-
is one of my favorite movies. Like, don't get me wrong, I
Kel is
love
the
me
new
some Good Will
regular
Hunting.
co-host of this podcast. Actually, we're gonna do our own podcast. It's gonna be Goodwill podcast,
Goodwill
and we're just gonna
It
rewatch.
sounds great.
We're gonna rewatch Good Will Hunting.
No, you every single week you talk about
a different scene.
a different Boston
No, a
film,
different
but it's
scene.
always Good Will Hunting.
This week we're gonna talk about the good Matt Damon, Ben Affleck starring film.
Well,
Good Will Hunting.
there's like a bunch of sort of like New Englandy set early 90s movies that have like a collegiate feel to them.
Yes, that leafy feel.
That I like, and
Like what? This is-
several
This
of
is-
them
we're
have
not-
Matt
we're not-
Damon in
We're
them.
not talking about Big Trouble anymore. Which movies are you talking about?
Well, so there's Good Will Hunting.
The
there's School Ties.
Oh, School
And
Ties.
there's
young Brendan Fraser.
no, that's with honors.
Yeah,
Oh,
Dum
with
Dum.
honors.
Oh no, wait, is he in
It
both?
is?
He's in both of them.
Is he
Yeah,
in
he
both
is
of
in
them?
both of them.
Matt Damon's also in School Ties.
He is in
though?
School Ties.
Okay,
He
that's
he
what was
plays the
confusing
neo-Nazi.
me.
No, he's not. That's Chris O'Donnell.
Chris O'Donnell's the neo-Nazi.
Chris O'Donnell is a good casting for a neo-Nazi because, like, I feel like I could never actually in real life think Chris O'Donnell's a neo-Nazi.
He's a dreamboat.
He
for
is
the
a
record.
dreamboat.
Is he still though?
Yeah,
I
he's still
didn't-
cute.
really?
CSI.
I don't
What
know.
does he do
Incarnation?
these
He's on
days?
CSI
I haven't
Miami.
seen him since Batman and Robin. Is
Oh,
that
That's a long time
I've
ago.
never seen Batman and Robin.
that's the George Clooney
Yeah,
Batman nipples,
Skipped
right?
it.
Yeah.
Skipped it. I should
Sucks.
see it. I'm sure
it's,
it sucks.
It's really horrible.
Yeah.
But Chris O'Donnell's in it.
So wait, what are these other Matt Damon movies?
So I think those might just be the three.
Welcome to
Okay,
Damon
that's-
Talk.
That's good. What else
I
is
feel
there?
like there's more, but there's like they're all New England like collegiate-esque movies, and they really appeal to me for some reason.
He produced the Manchester by the Sea movie too.
I didn't see it.
It's rough. It's worth. I mean, it's a hard watch, but it's good.
And
Kenneth Lonergan.
but isn't Casey Affleck in it? Too?
Yeah.
yeah.
That was like when the whole kind of backlash.
You know what
became more of
Casey
an open-
Affleck isn't in? Big Trouble, 1986.
So
Oh,
we should-
is that what we're
we
supposed
should
to be
talk
talking
about-
about?
after we get through with Good Will Hunting? So this
I thought this was a Good Will
the
Hunting
beginning
podcast
of Good
now.
Will Hunting. When he's okay, yeah, we should talk about Big Trouble.
So general impressions about Big Trouble.
Well, before we do that, maybe we should summarize what happens in Big Trouble.
Yeah, Kel, do you want to do the honors, or you
That's
don't
a-
have to?
you
It's a lot of
Ooh,
pressure.
really
that's
just put
a
her
lot
under
of
the bush.
pressure.
Just gonna put down the
Bush.
microphone for
Under the
15
bush. Under the bush. But Big Trouble stars Alan Arkin as an insurance salesman who needs money to send his triplets to Yale. And so in order to do that, he gets involved with a woman who's planning to murder her husband for the insurance money. It's a double indemnity remake.
Dun, dun, dun.
And it turns out that she and her husband are in cahoots, and craziness ensues.
Craziness does.
How did
ensue.
I do there? Was that a good
That's amazing.
synopsis
I
of
think
the
that was
film?
good.
Yeah.
It was good.
Cool. General impressions. Kel, what'd you think?
Well, Kel, can you tell also briefly? Can you tell us about that amazing fucking bit of trivia that you found?
Apparently, so they were sued by whatever production company made Double Indemnity because it's a really
Yes.
bad remake of Double Indemnity.
Well, we know Kel's feelings on the movie.
I didn't say it was a bad film.
It was a bad
film.
r-
Sorry.
It's hard to remake Double Indemnity.
Yeah, but like they were trying to go for this like comedy slapstick,
Yeah.
which like Double Indemnity is not. So I think they lost a few things there first. But so yeah, they got sued, but the way that they resolved it was that they gave up rights to a script for a sci-fi movie, and it turns out that sci-fi movie was Back to the Future. So they
Can you imagine?
screwed themselves.
Can you imagine
Also,
being
when I
that
was
film
reading
producer?
it, I don't
It's
know,
amazing.
the way it's written was like a sci-fi movie. It was Back to the Future, and you were like, holy shit. But also, I don't think of Back to the Future as a sci-fi
No,
movie,
not at
even
all.
though it obviously is.
Yeah, that's a good
It's
point.
just like my childhood.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's also a much better movie than Big Trouble.
It is a much better
By
movie than
leaps
Big
and
Trouble.
bounds.
Did you guys like Big Trouble?
I enjoyed it.
I
Sure.
enjoyed it too. I enjoyed it, but also, as I said over a text message with you, it's not very good.
I agree, but I also liked it. And I also have to say, this might apply more to you and me, George, but I had a little bit of an emotional last few minutes of the movie because I was like, we did it.
Ooh.
Oh, because it's the last
We're
movie.
done.
Oh,
We
because of
did it.
that. Okay. I thought you meant because of your own experiences being trying to rob a place and then finding out the terrorists are
Well,
taking
when I
it
had to
over.
send my 3 kids, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, to
Wait, has
Yale.
anyone seen
shit,
it? Perfect Strangers? Is it Identical Stranger? What's that movie? What's that documentary?
Perfect Strangers.
Identical
with Balky
Strangers.
Bartakis.
Perfect Stranger is the show that's got the
Yes.
sometimes the world feels closer.
Sorry, yes.
Nothing can real. What's it? How does the
With
theme go?
Balky.
Sometimes you just get a feeling like you need some kind of change. Standing tall on the rings
Liam loves to
of
sing on the
my
podcast, if you haven't noticed.
dream,
I've noticed.
rising
And it's not the
up.
bourbon either.
I thought he gave it up for New Year's or
For Lent.
something.
For
For Lent.
Lent, yeah.
It's Lent this week.
It is this
I
week.
actually have punch keys. Do you guys?
Yes.
Punch
they're a little bit
keys?
stale. They're a Polish donut that's traditionally eaten.
Don't
on
say donut to
Ooh,
George. Don't say
you had
donut
me
to
at
George.
donut,
Don't
yeah.
say donut to George. It's like
Can I
Candy
quickly
Man.
say something that I brought munchkins to my students the other day, unprompted, just because I'm like the greatest professor that ever lived, and I gave them the munchkins, and I kept saying like, "Oh, get some donuts," and some students were like, "They're not donuts, they're munchkins." I was like, "Come on, guys, just like okay, bear with me."
While you were talking, I found my daughter's bow in my back pocket.
That's really sweet.
Should I?
Yeah, you probably
I do
should put it
Is it a
in.
good look?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. We got distracted.
So this film,
So
it's not good, but it is entertaining.
the editing on this thing is gonna be just the
It's
best.
the bourbon.
Did you guys did you have any cognitive dissonance during the beginning when it said directed by John Cassavetes? Because I was like, what the fuck? This
Well,
is not a
so
John
I
Cassavetes
wanted to ask you guys about this since you've been working through his oeuvre. Were there anything in this film that felt like Cassavetes besides Falk,
It's a really good
question.
question.
or does it like not at all?
No, it
because it
feels
was like
like a-
handed to him.
So the thing that I think is interesting is that a third of it was shot before he took over.
Do we know like a third
What third of it?
chronologically, or just like a third in
I
general?
don't think that I'd be curious to know. I doubt it would be a third chronologically, but it might have been. I mean, I think it actually does at moments really feel like a John Cassavetes
Wow,
movie.
like where?
I'm so curious.
There's actually I wrote down a line. I wrote down a specific line that I was like, this is a John Cassavetes line. But yeah, the third of the movie was directed by Andrew Bregman, who made Striptease and a variety of other movies.
Which is
I
also
think,
a bad movie.
It makes more sense to me that Falk brought on Cassavetes, because I was like, how did he end up on this project? And then how did Peter Falk like end up in it? Like, it just felt like a little too weird that like he would happen to like pick up a movie that someone else directed and Peter Falk was already in it. But like, that makes more sense.
I will say that for me, it's one of the things that made it feel like the way a John Cassavetes movie is the way that Peter Falk behaves in the movie. I feel like there's like a very like especially at the end when he's like, "Are you gonna go back with your wife?"
Oh, that scene.
Like that's a very
That scene was really-
classic moment, and also just the like, "What do we do it?" Like it's a really endearing Falk performance because he seems more interested than our bottle guy is making so much noise. He seems much
He's
more
owning
interested in like the goofball adventure than he is the money, and that feels like a John Cassavetes thing to me a little bit. And I do feel like the last 10 minutes,
I feel like that scene, the funeral scene, might have actually been like improvised.
a total John Cassavetes
Yeah,
thing.
and be like, fuck it. Like this is the
Oh,
only
the
part.
funeral scene was so. Did you guys watch like through the
Oh,
credits?
like
yeah.
the kissing and like
It's
the
so
hugging.
weird.
Yeah,
It
it's
is really
really homoerotic.
Yeah.
It really is. And also that one guy, like the guy who plays O'Mara, like
Charles
really,
Durning,
He-
who's the what's his name's role in the Double Indemnity? The
I was in Double Indemnity?
no, he's not in Double. But the who's the big guy? Cagney. Cagney's part in Double Indemnity is that guy's part in Big Trouble.
But he like totally mauls poor Beverly D'Angelo, who's a goddess, by the way. But like, did you notice like he goes out of his way to like kiss her and like hug her, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her outfits are amazing,
They are amazing.
through this
They are
entire
amazing.
film.
Entire thing.
I
It's
kept
great.
being like, "What are you wearing?"
Is this before or after Christmas Vacation?
It is after.
This after.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's also interestingly situated movie in terms of its like timeline, because the last 10 minutes take place in like a really tall tower and involve terrorists, and I couldn't help but think about Die Hard.
That is amazing. It's a Die Hard prequel.
Oh,
It has a Die Hard quality. I forgot the bow was in my hair. Should we start at the beginning?
Yeah.
Let's go through.
So the film begins with these
son
triplets.
singing
And they're
with
not
the
actually triplets
it's
in
the
real
outside
life.
of the house, and they're
Which-
not triplets in real life, which is crazy.
they look like the dudes from the documentary, though.
the three
actual...
identical strangers.
Yeah. That was why. That was a
And
while
what are they
ago.
singing? What are they singing at the beginning?
I don't know. They're doing something in acapella. Oh yeah.
So they're all at the table, and they're all like singing, and it's preposterous.
Something from a Bugs
And the
Bunny
mother's
cartoon.
like, "Eat your protein and get out of the house." And then we realize that Alan Arkin, who's so good in this movie for about 50% of it,
He
is
is
like
good, though. Some of his
very
reactions are
meticulously
amazing.
doing bills at the table.
He's trying to figure out a way to get them to Yale.
All three of them are wearing Yale jerseys.
At the piano, no.
He's at
Isn't he
the-
doing bills at the piano?
Yeah, I think
Oh, I
that
didn't
one
notice
thing
he was
that's
at the
nice
piano.
about the film is that it doesn't. He barely speaks to his sons, but they show him hanging out with them enough that it makes their relationship really, really endearing. Like they're all
Aw.
playing music together, and then
Yeah.
they're all watching a bad action movie together. But the kids leave for school. Did you guys also notice the weird cat calling moment at the beginning of the movie? They back out of the
No.
driveway, and there's a girl walking down the street, and they go like woo woo woo.
I
with this
totally
girl.
missed that.
I made a note
Yeah.
about what they were driving because it looked like it was something that was like.
Oh my god, it was such a suburban car.
Really? It looked like, I
Oh.
thought it was like painted in camo or
Yeah,
was
something.
but
like a
that like
Jeep,
Jeep,
right?
that
Yeah.
Jeep thing. I don't know. Where I grew up, like
These guys
wealthy
were
kids
high
had
and
that
flying in the
car.
Reagan era. Am I right? I'm saying 19.
High and flying in the
1980
Reagan era. The John Cassavetes story.
1986. We're fucking knee deep in it, which is also interesting to think about the film actually in that kind of context, because it is very much up until like the very, very end a critique of like the American dream and about how impossible it is to fucking like make it in this world. And then like the last 10 minutes, like totally kind of
Can we
reverses
get
itself.
there?
Sorry.
So I
I
want
forgot that this was a journey.
So after it is a journey, and it's not about the destination, which is the end of this fucking movie.
So Leonard is doing the math.
And Leonard, and he realizes he can't afford to send his kids to school.
And he's like, it's $14,000 a year, I think, for all three of them, which I did the math, by the way.
42,000.
42. The inflation, like,
Oh my
calculator.
god, here we go.
Only like $100,000 a year.
I feel like that's low. I feel
It
like it would have been
is?
more than 14,000.
I agree, yeah. 1980,
Or
whatever.
that goes to show you how fucking crazy it has gone to actually send somebody to like an elite school like Yale
Maybe.
nowadays. I just read it as kind of that's just how bad things have gotten in the last 30 years.
I
I
read it
guess
as
that's
that
possible.
as well.
Yeah. Did anyone notice that Leonard's wife, I can't remember her name, trash talks
Yes!
City,
Arlene Hoffman.
City
Yeah,
College?
I like wanted to stop the movie. I was like,
Like,
yo,
boo.
I
Fucking
went
CUNY
there.
represent.
CUNY.
I know. I was like, did I just hear those words? Like, what did you
what are we gonna do?
say?
Send him to CCNY? And I was like, yo, fuck you, lady.
My note here says brutal CCNY joke.
Yeah, she makes CCNY, and what's the other school she makes fun of?
Like
who the
UC
fuck cares?
Berkeley or something?
Oh,
One
yeah,
of the
it's
UC
like
one of
schools.
the
I
Well,
think.
first of all,
school.
thank you so much for mentioning CCNY and that company. Thank you so much. But fuck you also.
Yeah. I turned to my CCNY tattoo. I was like, don't worry about it. It's like,
What is their mascot? The Purple Devils or something?
It's- oh,
really
maybe.
Really?
Yeah.
I
Valerie,
just learned.
go ahead.
City Tech has a mascot, but we have no teams.
Yeah, well, that's like
Aw.
CCNY. I
Yeah.
think.
well, the
I don't think
library
CCNY.
mascot then.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
library.
So then we
The
cut.
City Tech librarians.
We cut to Leonard at work.
Before we
Uh,
do there, can we
please, yeah.
talk about how amazing Valerie Curtin is as Arlene Hoffman, his wife in this
Ah.
movie? She's really, really good because she just has to play like a ludicrous human being, but she keeps being like, "Get something warm for lunch." Like she's really, really funny, and I do think that this might be a Cassavetes thing where he was
She's
like,
a bit of a cartoon.
he was
character.
basically like, I don't care what you do, but be like he let them go for it, and
Yeah.
it's like she's really, really good in the few beats.
She is,
and I
yeah.
thought she had more in the film because she's on the poster next to Beverly D'Angelo and Peter Falk, and you're like, oh, she's gonna be a big part of the movie, and she's in it for all of 10
That's
minutes.
right. Yeah.
So then he goes to work.
Goes to work. His boss is played by
Robert Stack.
which is amazing.
Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah.
Oh, I was like, where do I know that dude from?
At any point, I thought he was
that
going to turn to
voice.
the camera and be like,
Well,
on
to be
in
clear,
today's episode,
We know him from
Bigfoot,
Unsolved
real or
Mysteries,
not?
but we also all know him from
Liam.
Basketball.
please.
The Trey.
Obviously.
Trey Parker, Matt Stone.
Much better movie if
masterpiece.
directed by
You
Trey
shut
Anastasio.
the fuck up.
By the way, Liam, Bigfoot, real or not? Please. That was
You're
not
really-
a rhetorical
This is your
question.
only good impression so far.
I practiced all day today. Actually, I didn't watch the rest of the film. I just kept repeating, or there's Robert Stack's first kind of.
So he goes to
moments in
work,
the
and
film to
Robert
get down
Stack is his boss.
his voice.
So he speaks to the insurance investigator played by Charles Durning, who's Cagney in the original, and he's like, "Oh, Robert Stack, your boss went to Yale. You should go talk
And his
to him."
grandfather went to Yale, and his kids go to Yale.
Everyone goes to Yale,
Their
and so he
legacies.
goes to talk to him, and he's in
Fucking
a
Yaleys.
meeting. Robert
Keep that
Stack is in a.
fucking Yale. Fuck that. Sorry. No, but seriously.
Did
fuck
you
Yale.
apply to Yale?
I did, and they wouldn't take me in for
That's
graduate
bullshit.
school. I know. A genius like me. So he goes, and sorry, go ahead.
No, that's cool.
Go ahead.
Fuck
Yale.
fucking. Hey Yale. Fuck you. Fuck you, Yale. You think you're better than me?
And
Fuck
Yale
you.
Law School.
Fuck you, Yale. You piece of shit.
Oh, but now it's really turned into like Good Will Hunting. And this is where the film also gets like really kind of interesting, because one of the things that Robert Stack says is like, oh yeah, like everybody in my family has gone to Yale. And then he says, oh, if I were to help your kids go to Yale, that wouldn't be fair, because everybody should kind of have like an equal
my
footing.
blood was like boiling
rough
at that
scene.
point, and just like it's just like all the shit about like people being like self-made billionaires and like shit like that. I'm like, no,
yeah, it's an
you're,
interesting time to watch the movie.
no, you're fucking not. I'm also dealing with some student loan problems,
Yeah.
so it's a little
Yeah.
close to home right now. But yeah, that was like so
CCNY.
infuriating. Like I deserve this because I'm a legacy, but you don't deserve any kind of like leg
Totally.
up, or like, and even like, I don't know, to think about like him making a call to Yale is like the smallest fucking gesture he
Yeah,
could ever
yeah.
make, and he can't even do that. Like,
And Leonard says later on in the film, he's like, I've worked 18 years for this company, and like I'm not getting anything out of it. Which
Yeah.
sounds a lot like Robert Stack. I got to work on
No,
that.
it wasn't
Sorry.
that bad.
Yeah.
No, and this was like one of the moments. Like, so then they leave this room and they're walking in the hallway, and he goes into. He's like, my wife wants me to get this, and they walk into a back room, and it's like filled with
It's
gold.
like a Bond's villain
Yeah.
office.
Yeah, it's a
by the way.
Bond villain office, exactly. And that's when he gives the speech about like, well, I can't give you a leg up.
yeah, that was also, I mean, I think it was sort of like a brilliant scene though.
Totally.
That was
It
like
was a
one
really
of the
good
few where
scene.
I was like, he's like plucking this like golden vase for his wife or whatever it is. It's like a golden candy tray or something.
Yeah.
And he's
He's
like,
like, "What
I
do you
can't
put
give
in
you
this?"
anything, but I don't even know what my wife's going to use this for.
Yeah,
like,
that's really good. And Robert Stack is really perfectly cast in it.
Yeah.
He is. He's great.
He's very, very
What
good.
the fuck is up with this vault though? Is it stuff that's just kind of like insurance? So they work at an insurance
well,
company.
that's
Is it
what I
stuff that's
didn't
just
understand
insured?
either.
And he like takes it out.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
is it his
Well,
own
Well, this
stuff?
was also the moment where I
I
was like,
didn't
this
understand.
movie's a satire, right? Like, not that it wasn't kind of clearly before, but that moment is so
Totally.
preposterous
It's a
that
total.
you're
Yeah.
like, what is actually going on here?
Yeah.
It's, and it's,
Well, there's also like the whole part like leading up to it. Like he's in his office and then he like presses a button and the wall like detracts.
Right.
And then he like goes in another, and then there's like this vault. Like it's all really
Right.
bizarre. Yeah.
And there's
and
a
over
huge
the top.
portrait of him too in the office.
Oh, yeah.
That's like, it's
Yeah.
like it's really, that's the moment when you're like, okay, this is a ridiculous comedy. So defeated, Alan Arkin goes back to the office,
Defeated.
but then he gets called to go visit a client who needs homeowners insurance,
Yeah.
played by Beverly D'Angelo, who George has called a goddess.
She is.
She's
I'm sticking with it.
I felt things about Beverly D'Angelo in my youth that were sort of
They were brought back. Yeah,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Turned into that kind of podcast now.
So she's dressed sort of scantily.
Yeah,
clad a
so
little bit.
Absolutely.
He goes over to the house.
And she's sort of like an idiot femme fatale. Would
Right,
be
yeah.
a bit of a way to describe it.
Well, yeah, but
And
obviously
she's like, "My
playing a role. She knows she's playing the
husband."
role.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
like, shouldn't it be obvious to Ellen Arkin that she's playing? Like, I'm like, oh, this is all bullshit.
Well, it
This
happens
is
very
clearly
quickly
bullshit.
though, doesn't he? Kind of like get like pick up on it like right then and there. Because basically, she says like, oh, actually, what I really want is
life insurance.
for my husband.
And she's like, what? And he's very sick. And Alan Arkin's like, why don't you have life insurance? And they keep saying he has fat around his heart, which I thought was
yeah.
just like the
Yeah.
weirdest.
But it felt like she like led him. I don't know. It felt like he should have picked up that she was so obviously leading him there.
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
she
yeah.
wasn't stupid enough to like, I don't know. That
That's
sort
I
of
agree
bothered
with you.
me.
Yeah.
That it was really obvious that she was leading him there. Like
Yeah. Well, no, but I thought the whole point of it is like she's obviously kind of like seducing him into thinking that he's kind of taking the lead on this. Like she
Yes.
clearly knows what she's doing. So that's why like she plays like the bimbo, but clearly she's in charge.
Wait. How does she actually know that he has financial troubles? That's what I didn't understand.
No, she doesn't. That's a good point.
No,
No,
she
she
doesn't.
doesn't.
She
That
just so
might
happens
be-
to find somebody that also
So
wants
she
to
just
commit
like
a crime.
picks a random person, and it just
Right.
so happens because
Yeah.
no one has money. Is what
Right,
we're
right, right. That's
okay.
also good.
That's also correct.
This
in
was
America.
the scene
I was a
that,
little
that had
confused
a
about
that. No one has
very
money.
John Cassavetes line in it, which at one point she's talking to him, and she says to him, I'm trying to tell you something about reality." And that is such a John Cassavetes line. Like that could be in any John Cassavetes movie. I'm trying to tell you something about reality, because he's talking about like the paperwork, whatever. And she's like, "No, it's about love. It's about feeling. It's about these things." It just feels like a very classic vintage.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it would be interesting to actually know if Cassavetes did have any kind of.
So the script is credited to someone random.
Which
And
is Berg or
There's also a theory it's Elaine May,
right. I heard.
which would be interesting.
I read
'cause
that
Elaine May is
rumor too.
You read it on the John Cassavetes Encyclopedia?
No, this is on the John Cassavetes Dictionary, which is IMDb.
IMDb.com. So where do we go next? Does anybody remember?
No, I stopped taking notes because I was trying to work on my Robert Stack impersonation. So Leonard goes back home.
Well, no, wait. Doesn't Peter Falk come home first?
Oh, he does.
Yeah,
Wait,
and
is
with the
this-
Chinese
yes.
laborers in
Oh,
the back of the
yeah.
truck.
Yes.
Yeah.
This was.
Let's talk about this
Was,
scene.
this was rough.
Yeah.
This was rough.
Not funny. That was
but
not
it wasn't funny. But there was also again a really interesting critique about like American.
I can't give you money.
kind of credit. Yeah, where
But
basically
here's
he's like,
McDonald's.
He's like, oh, this is money in America. Here, like, fill out this thing for
The
a
credit
credit
card
card, or like,
application,
yeah. And I thought, like, yes, not funny, really problematic, but I did think at least kind of the way in which he's clearly like exploiting these men.
Yeah.
Is I read it as obviously like an indictment of American capitalism
Peter Falk is really bad in this scene.
in this scene.
Yeah, he's really. I felt he was really, and also all of his lines are ADR'd, like recorded after the fact, and you can tell. At least and it drove me nuts. I know it's a small
I
thing.
was wondering. Something sounded.
So yeah, there's a lot of that
Oh.
in this movie. I feel like they were like, "This doesn't work. Let's rewrite all these." Like, there's a whole thing with Robert Stack earlier in the film where I'm like, he didn't say any of the things that we're hearing right now.
Oh,
on set.
interesting.
I
I felt like things were off, but I felt like maybe I just wasn't paying close enough
But-
attention.
no,
and
I
was
think
missing
it's a
things.
bigger problem than that.
But also going back about a couple of minutes too, I forget that like Beverly D'Angelo's like, oh yeah, my husband's an adventurer and he looks like Peter Falk.
Yeah, does she say that?
Wait, did she say that?
Well, he says she calls him an adventurer, yeah. And there's that picture of him with like the polar bear.
Yeah, but she doesn't say he looks like Peter Falk.
No,
Oh.
no, I'm saying
If
saying
two
that-
people thought that's what you were saying, then it's
No,
entirely
but just
possible.
but the fact like that he's buying it, like, oh, a man that looks like that, totally an adventurer,
Yeah, that's true, and
Yeah.
it's clearly not who he is. It's
Yeah.
it's
and
a
this
ruse.
and this is post fucking Indiana Jones.
So did they hire
That's
all
what an
these
adventure should look like.
Chinese laborers to be like, is it all part of their scheme? Or are they really?
Oh,
It's
that's a good
interesting. I don't
point.
know.
Huh.
I don't know. I wrote down the words Safari Colombo just for the record.
Safari Colombo coming
yeah.
to you in 2019.
Safari Colombo, the Kel story.
Who could place Columbo in a remake? Who's our now Columbo?
Oh shit, that's a very good question. Chris O'Donnell.
Oh,
Maybe just because I have Chris
Matt
O'Donnell.
Damon playing Will Hunting as
Playing
Columbo.
as Columbo.
Yes.
Oh, that'd be so.
I'd
What are
watch
you
that.
a fucking criminal,
Hey, I got another-
dude?
Hey, I got another. Just one final fucking question. For
Here's
you,
one
right?
question for you. You
Um,
cool? You cool, bro?
So he shows up. They meet for the first time. Arkin goes home.
And he does a family jam session.
Yeah. Oh, I love the family jam.
He's playing the.
Well, but he also
the
tells the
lute
kids. He also tells the kids first.
or
so
the piccolo.
They have the kind of you're not going to Yale, and the kids are like, we love you anyway.
Oh
Dad."
yeah, that's actually a tough scene.
It is a tough scene. Yeah.
In the sense that it's, yeah, well, it's not really.
As tough as the scene could be in this.
I didn't really feel. I
fucking
didn't
movie.
feel all the feelings. But then they're family jamming, and then Blanche calls.
Oh,
and
I
she's
love the
like,
family-
"Meet me at the."
Wait, hold on.
Fam
Aaron
jam.
Arkin on the flute or the piccolo, or whatever
Piccolo.
that is.
Yeah. It was
Or the
great.
recorder? Was it a recorder? I think it was a piccolo. But I like that they
I'm still in
reference.
shock.
I like that they reference that he's a musician. I like that he's like a musician in the movie.
yeah.
I thought that was a nice touch because his kids are all successful musicians, and he's like an
Mm.
insurance salesman that plays
Mhm.
instruments at night.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's
So,
a quiet little thing.
so Beverly D'Angelo calls him
She's like, "Meet me at the drugstore
at the
tomorrow."
Rexall.
The what?
The Rexall, I believe.
Yeah, that's what the drugstore is
Yeah,
called.
Rexall.
Oh, what's Rexall?
Are they
I
still
think
around?
it's. Did it exist?
Oh, that's a good question. Did they even exist?
You guys said that with the confidence of people that were like, "You've never heard of
Yeah,
Rexall
no.
before?"
No, of course.
No,
I
but
was
they
like,
they
oh,
say
I
it.
think
They
it was a
say it several
CVS growing up.
times in the film, and then when she calls him, a few scenes later in the office, she says that she's Miss Rexall.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
O'Mara's like, that's not a real name.
Oh my God, Cal, I totally missed that.
Yeah.
Huge pickup. Can we pause real quick and just say that there's several scenes in the film that are early that are like single dolly camera push-ins with this really ridiculous music, and they're fucking murder. They're awful.
What's what?
It's
Sorry,
like
go ahead.
It's so like 80s sitcom.
it is.
And I was
so-
no, that stood out to me too. There's one where like Alan Arkin's like pulling in the driveway and they're playing, or maybe it's he's pulling in the house of Beverly D'Angelo and Peter Falk, and it's playing, and I was like, is this the opening credits to a sitcom?
I think those scenes were already shot, and they were like,
The
John,
music was
sorry,
awful.
sorry, John.
Sorry,
You gotta, or he was like, fuck it, let's
just
do
like-
it.
Just like the idea, like Peter Falk is off camera, and whenever he's not on like screen, he's like, "I'm sorry, John. John, I'm sorry.
John, I'm so sorry. I know you're getting paid more
I'm
money than
sorry,
you've
John.
ever been paid
But
for
John,
any project
John, I'm
you've
sorry.
done before, but
And he
I'm
hates
sorry,
himself
John.
for it. He's like, God damn it. It's like, yeah, I'm cashing these checks, but I fucking hate it.
So they go to the party store, and they have this long
It's a drugstore.
drug
Drug
scene.
store?
What?
Party store? Drugs?
There was something in the store.
There were
they,
party
they were
supplies.
buying party supplies, so I wrote
But it was
down
a
party
drugstore.
store, but it was a drugstore.
So this is where they concoct the plan, basically that.
but they're
she's
such an
gonna-
awkward scene. Go ahead.
She's gonna kill Peter Falk.
Right.
But that he also like knows that's gonna happen because he's dying anyway, right? So the idea is that she tells Leonard that my husband's in on it anyway.
Right.
He just wants to kind of be surprised by it, and she wants to buy a life insurance plan off of him that will pay the most money. And he's like, oh, there's this like ridiculous plan. It's called like the I wrote it down here. Something called like the deluxe
Plan. Yeah,
Deluxe
it's the deluxe
plan?
plan.
where basically it pays 2.5 million, but if he falls off a train and dies, it pays 5 million.
Right. It's like
Did
a
you guys
very
do,
specific.
Did you guys do the
plan.
inflation calculator for this one too?
What do you think it would have been?
Ooh,
It's like
definitely
5.5 million.
Definitely not Bezos money, but yeah, maybe like 5.7.
Bezos bucks. Wait till we start, guys. Wait till we have to have Bezos bucks.
Ooh, it's gonna happen
It's
soon.
really
It's
scary.
happening like tomorrow.
I know.
It's
Fuck.
happening tomorrow.
This podcast brought to you by Fuck Jeff
By
Bezos.
Bezos.
And I may have watched this movie on Amazon Prime.
Fuck Yale too. So they come
You
up
know where
with a
Jeff
plan.
Bezos went to college?
What was that?
Yale.
Yale.
Ah,
Did he
see?
really?
No, I don't know.
No.
No, he went to Amazon University.
So Peter Falk shows up, and Ellen's like, "You invited your husband?" And she was like, "Oh yeah, he's gonna pick me up. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, this is what it's
Ooh,
so. It should be
I
so
had questions
obvious
though.
that this is like
I have
very.
a lot of questions
yeah.
for this
Please.
movie in general. How did she get to the drugstore if he's picking her up? She does not seem like the type to walk there.
Lyft.
These are good.
Lyft.
Lyft,
Yeah,
like in
1986.
1986.
Yeah.
I mean, she could have taken a taxi cab.
I guess she could have taken
Also,
a taxi.
I
But
bet
wait,
knows
where does
that
this
movie.
take place?
LA
also?
set movie because at one point I looked it up.
That's a good
At
question.
one point she says, "I'll meet you in Cayuga." Is the name of the town
Oh,
where the
so
drugstore
like
is.
Ithaca?
Cayuga.
Cayuga Lake. Isn't
Yeah,
that-
but no,
like
Cayuga, something like that. But I looked it up. It's LA. The movie takes place in LA,
Oh,
which
it
I think is a
does.
really weird place for this movie to take place.
Filmed in Phoenix?
Was it?
I thought that's what IMDb said.
But I
Filmed
think
in
it's
Phoenix,
also
takes
this is
place in LA,
another
but it's
movie
really
kind of
Ithaca.
out middle class Los Angeles, which is like a
I
woman
was
under the
was
influence.
wondering about that. Yeah,
I think it's LA because
it felt. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was. It felt like it was again like just based on your previous podcast episodes. It felt like it was similar to that. That
Yeah.
it was like interior life, middle class.
Yeah,
LA,
no,
which is like
there is
not
that.
what you get in LA movies.
Well, that's the thing that I think that is really interesting. is
But
that,
then
again,
also, does it make it another connection to Die Hard?
Ooh.
Oh.
Shared universe, shared cinematic universe.
shared this Die Hard cinematic universe,
Of
Yeah.
course,
DHCU.
Just saying.
No, but I think it is interesting that he did make another. I mean, Faces is not a middle class movie, but Woman Under the Influence is.
What am I the influence is? Yeah.
Love Streams is not.
Not any. Well, more like Jenna Rollins' character.
Yeah, but he's,
is,
like,
but he's
weirdly
kind of-
wealthy.
he's weirdly wealthy.
It's so fucking weird. This is the last movie this guy made. He clearly needed the money.
Clearly
I-
the paycheck.
Oh man, crazy to think. Whatever. Anyway, where'd we go next?
Well, so and then Peter Falk like fakes having a heart attack.
Yeah, he has and he's doing
His-
this.
His facial expressions. So okay, at this point, like I'm pretty sure that he's not dying. Like I feel
Yeah.
like I
He
figured
doesn't have
that out.
fat
Well,
around his heart.
Sherlock Kell over here.
Right, because like the faces and stuff that happen when they're at his place, I'm like, okay, maybe those are the faces you make when you're in pain. Okay, cool. But in the drugstore, I'm like, no fucking way. This is totally. They're so absurd.
That's so absurd. Yeah.
They're so absurd that it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's like take it down a notch so that like the other people involved actually believe it. But Alan Arkin's still game.
Yeah,
Did
it's
either
really
of you
preposterous.
laugh? Like, did you laugh a lot during this film?
I laughed a few times.
I
There were
laughed a
some
few
outright
times.
moments where I laughed. Like I thought that was really good. It was mostly at the end though.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
mostly the last scene.
I feel like I had to get to a certain point where I like felt comfortable with what was happening. At the
Yeah.
beginning, I felt like so uncomfortable with so many things that I was like, I don't know what's going on.
The level of absurdity certainly increases.
Yeah,
as the
and I
film
feel like
goes
once it
on.
starts getting, I don't know, sorry, jumping ahead, but once they get to the like morgue scene, I was like, okay, I'm done. This is fucking ridiculous. Not done in a bad way. Like I felt like
get
I
it,
could
yeah.
finally like enjoy
You release
it.
your like in
Yeah.
So then Alan Arkin goes back home.
right, and he watches a movie with his kids.
Yeah.
They're watching an action movie, and the wife is like, "Get the fuck out of the room."
Right.
But also her children are sitting on her legs. Did anyone else get
Yeah,
that?
it was
In
weird.
the bed, yeah.
Like part of why she's upset that they're in the bed is because like her legs are uncomfortable or something, and I'm like, why are you letting your teenage sons like literally sit on top of you? Like that doesn't sound like a good idea.
I do feel like there's a little bit unexplored with the mom in this movie because she's so so crazed and anxious, and you got to be like, I mean, like Alan Arkin shouts at her in the first scene for like 30. He's like, I
Yeah.
can't figure it. And he's like, oh, why are you yelling at your wife?
Well, even she like stares out the window for like a really long
Yeah, she
time, and like
does.
you have no idea what she's looking at or like what's going on in her head. I'm like, there's a whole
There's
movie
a whole
going on.
movie going on that, and she's so good in the
That would
movie.
be amazing if Cassavetes has like 100 hours of film, like somewhere in an archive, and it's that.
The
it's-
Jean Diamond sequel.
and it's the mom's like story.
Oh man, I
I-
want to do Chantal Ackerman, but I don't think we have the time.
What would-
Let's do it.
What were the moms? what were
Okay,
the
but wait.
mom's
Can I
movie be
also
called?
say that
Go
I
ahead.
misread the synopsis for this movie, and I thought that she was going to try and kill Alan Arkin.
You read the synopsis for Big Trouble in Little
That
China,
was-
and you were like,
Oh,
"This- none
fuck
of
you
this
for
is
going to that joke.
No, but just I
Same
like,
year,
saw
same
like
year.
wife
Whoa.
insurance salesman death
Yeah.
money, and she seems so upset with him and so eager to get this money
Yeah,
for her
I
kids
think
that
she'd
I was
probably
like,
kill him.
she's gonna off him, and there's already an insurance plan in place because he's an insurance salesman. So like everything's like all the ducks are in a row.
And then when you were like, "Where's Kurt Russell? Why hasn't he shown up yet?" It's like 45 minutes in.
Yeah, I thought Kim Cattrall was in
Yeah,
this
like,
movie.
What's going on?
Where
in
are
this
the
film?
problematic depictions of Asian characters? Oh wait, they're in
There-
the first
there
5
was
minutes of the
definitely
movie.
that.
The first
About
5
20
minutes.
minutes before. So then they set up. So he goes. Leonard goes the next day back to the house, and this is where they're gonna like sign the paperwork.
And he's sort of like very anxious.
Yeah.
This is when the Alan Arkin performance starts to fly off the rails.
And this
a
is also
little
when
bit.
it's weird because again, if Beverly D'Angelo said to Alan Arkin that Peter Falk knows he's gonna get killed, why is Alan Arkin like freaking out about him signing the paperwork? Because
Yeah.
it seems like they're kind of trying to get one over on
It's
him.
a bad movie.
it was weird. It was confusing.
But this is also where I got like one of my first legitimate laughs, where after they sign the documents,
Right.
Peter Falk offers him some sardine liqueur. And
Oh
he-
no,
and he
it's
drinks
a
it,
great spit
and
take.
he
It goes
spits
on
it
for
out.
45 minutes.
and his voice changes, and he's doing this weird kind of voice.
Yeah, it's good.
And it's, I was like, this is like the first time
And
I,
his
like,
suit's
I
covered.
legitimately
Well, what I
laughed.
appreciate about it, that also feels like a John Cassavetes movie, because in any other movie, he'd be like, do a spit take once, but John Cassavetes was like, spit take 7 times.
But this is also another great line where, and obviously it's absurd, where Peter Falk turns to like Alan
So
Arkin,
good.
and he's like, "What kind of philosophy do you like, Leonard?" He's like, "Do you like philosophy? I like
Yeah, that's
philosophy."
right. He's like, I like to keep things simple. He's
Yeah.
like, I think Leonard and I could work well together.
He's like, "I like simple philosophy," and I was like, "That's also a very Cassavetes-esque line."
That's true, it is.
Yeah. So then,
This movie's abound with Cassavetes.
Yeah.
Maybe because he directed it.
ooh, that's a very
Part of his
great
oof.
call.
Kel left again. Kel's like, I'll be making drinks in the other room. Where do we go next?
That's a very
Did
good
you guys
question.
also notice that the sound in this movie is really bizarre? Like the footsteps all echo in a really weird way. Like there was a lot of weird sound.
There were some things I noticed definitely that like the like sound, like specifically like sound effects, like
Yes.
footsteps and stuff
It was
also
like
felt
they
really
were,
off.
They were a frame off, and so you're like, hrum, 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 and you're like, what? Did they record these sounds in like a cathedral?
Yeah.
Did they record this in the same cathedral that OK Computer was recorded in? Ooh, deep cut.
Deep cut. So
White
then
dude cut.
they go back. They go back to the office.
Right.
And this is where O'Mara, like the investigator, the insurance company, is like, "You got somebody to sign like that,
This
like crazy,
ridiculous
yeah, this
agreement?"
ridiculous. He's like, "Yeah, I don't know how it happened."
That's when Miss wait, sorry, what is the drugstore called?
Rexall,
again?
yeah, and then she calls
Rexall.
him.
Calls.
Miss Rex.
And can I say I really love Alan Arkin like pressed up against the
That's
wall.
I was an out loud laugh moment because you don't see him and then it cuts to him and he's like,
good.
yeah, totally.
Like inches away from it. Yeah.
Very
but
funny.
also like, I don't know. Yeah.
So yeah, she calls him
Good
at
physical
the
comedy
office.
bit. There's some good. There's like
There is,
yeah,
yeah.
there's a couple.
Especially
of them.
towards the end. So she calls him and she basically says like, "Oh hey, so my husband Peter Falk is going away for an army reunion.
He's going on a trip on a train. How convenient. Why is Alan Arkin not like alarm bells are ringing?
It's like, so this is when we're gonna do it. Dun 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 dun.
Dun dun dun.
So the plan also is like
Dun, dun,
to
dun,
murder,
dun.
and this is also really fucking convoluted. And obviously it makes sense later on, but the plan is to murder Peter Falk on the way to the train.
Then
Arkin
get on the train,
to get on the train,
and then
dressed in the same clothes.
drag him in the car, so it looks like he fell off the train, right?
Oh wait, does she drag him from the car?
That's what they say
No.
they're gonna do. I think.
Oh, is that
Really?
what she says?
I missed that.
And
Maybe
that's why
I
his
missed
face
it.
gets
I could
fucked
be
up?
wrong. It's very convoluted.
So basically, Alan Arkin is supposed to get on the train, dressed as Peter Falk.
Right.
So that way there's corroboration that in fact he did get on the train, but they're going to murder him before he gets on the train.
Right. So much to remember.
So much to remember. So then on the car ride over to the train station, Beverly D'Angelo with Alan Arkin in the car driving strangles Peter Falk.
This also probably should have been a red flag.
Ooh, it should have been, yeah.
Yeah.
And this scene was actually
I've
kind of
never
funny.
choked anyone to death, but I think it takes more
Yeah.
than 45 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's only 8:55.
He also didn't put up much of a fight.
No,
He did
and
not put
he's
a
doing
bunch
the
of
face.
He is
His
doing-
heart attack face.
Yeah, his heart attack
Yeah,
face.
he's doing the heart attack face. So, but this is also where I find it kind of funny because like Alan Arkin is kind of freaking out, and like Beverly D'Angelo said like, oh yeah, did you not like hear all the noises he was making? It was kind of like, oh,
It's like you at the very beginning of this episode.
it was,
Yeah.
and he's like, stop it. He's like, I blocked that all out. And then quickly, so Alan Arkin then gets on the train. He has a run-in with what's this actor's name? Dooley. I looked it up. I forgot. And Alan Arkin at some point jumps off the train. He's been spotted. Paul Dooley. He's been spotted. He jumps off the train and he meets up with Beverly D'Angelo like at a certain kind of point.
And they throw the body. They lay the body out.
Yeah, and at this point also the body.
But it's wrapped in a bag.
the body's face has been like mangled or
Right.
destroyed, which becomes a very, very important plot point.
Right.
Wait. Can I just say though,
Please.
like when they're actually investigating it, I was like, whatever happened to dental records?
Yes.
Oh, that's a really
very
good point.
Because
Yeah.
it's
That's a really
a
good
lot of
point.
like sort of like master murder type movies situations. Like that's one of you
They use
like
the teeth.
yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Or like you somehow find some like obnoxious way to like
Yeah.
fuck up the teeth or like
If only there was like a fingerprinting technology in 1986, but we all know that was invented
In 1987.
1987, just a year later.
They called it 1987 the year of the
I didn't
fingerprint.
even think about fingerprints, but that's also a thing, right? They're like the only way we can possibly identify a human is by their face.
by their face.
Maybe we're the wrong
by just
audience
looking
for this movie.
by just
gang.
looking at them.
Wait, but also there were so many like moments where I was like Alan Arkin, like what are you doing? Like
Yeah.
do you so like the fact that the
So
body
many
is like
moments.
wrapped so tightly
Yes.
and like all this like he's like why did you do this but not like how did you do this and the because if the train depending on how fast the train is going and how much traffic there is and traffic lights, it is entirely possible that she wouldn't even like meet the
Yes.
train at the same
Yeah,
time.
that's a really good
Yeah.
point.
So how did she have? And I misunderstood the plan. I thought part of like the plan was that she had to be there at the exact moment he got off the train, which that wasn't actually really
but it's
necessary.
kind of implied that she would be.
It's implied that she would be, and she runs from the train station, right?
Right.
So there's like this sense of urgency and all this stuff. So he never questions though the fact that this body is like so expertly wrapped and like
Yeah.
the face is missing and that all of this happened in the time that it took her to drive there. And she arrived like 30 seconds after he jumped off the train.
Yeah.
And also, like, where does he know, like, when exactly to jump? It's so unclear. But the face stuff actually happens later. So he goes back home.
He watches the news report.
Well, first he tells his kids, like, you're going to Yale.
You're going to Yale. Well, he goes and watches them sleep, and one wakes up and he's like, "You're going."
Yeah.
Which is what my dad did, but it was to a
he
state
woke-
school. He was like, "You're finally going to
He
college."
woke up at 3:30 in the morning. He's like, Psst, Liam, hey, fuck you. You're going to state college. Like, Dad, what are you doing? Why are you wearing, why are you wearing the
What I
hockey
really
mask?
like about that is,
Like, shut up.
Lee, wake up, shut up, wake up, wake up, fuck you. Hey, love you. Fuck you.
Shut the fuck up. You're going to stay.
Dad, I haven't said anything. I said, shut the fuck up. Shut up.
It's late. Okay, it's late.
Shut up. You have to go back to sleep. Fuck you.
Fuck you. Fuck you. Okay. You're going to stay calm.
Oh, I thought you fuck you. I thought you were saying fuck you. I really thought it was fuck you.
I was saying both.
Hey, you.
Fuck you.
Fuck you. I really thought it was fuck you.
So he turns on the TV and
So he goes back to the house, turns on the TV.
and finds out that the body has been discovered.
That news has been reported very quickly.
Has.
It's only at one point she's like, it's
super quickly.
8:45 p.m.
She
She says it's like
a little
10
later,
o'clock.
but yeah,
it's
but
like, it was
very
very
quickly.
early. It's like, wow, you're home already?
And this is when he finds out that the face of who he thinks is Peter Falk has been mutilated, because then he goes and he calls, right? He calls Beverly D'Angelo, and he's like, "What did you do to his face? What did you do to his face?" And at this point, I wrote a note. Clearly, it's not him.
Well, but also
Sherlock
that means that he doesn't
Fragnopoulos.
actually unwrap the body.
No, he never unwraps it, which is so stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also apparently dead bodies make him crave cream soda.
Guys, these people are bad at crime.
They are.
Oh,
Yeah,
are
and then
they?
He's talking
part
about
of the
cream
humor.
soda. I kind of like the cream soda thing because he's lying, right? He doesn't actually want cream soda.
Oh, absolutely.
But I do like the idea that like there's something like instinctual, but like I gotta have a cream soda. I just did something real bad.
Well, then the wife is
I did
like,
something
"Are you
bad."
having an affair?" And it's like, "There's no
Is there
one
someone else,
Yeah.
Leonard?
Well,
She's
so there's
so
all
good.
these moments where she seems like outraged or like she's like jealous about the phone call, but then she seems like he's like it was the wrong number, and she seems like confused, but like just lets it go.
Yeah.
Like I was really intrigued by all of that too, because she comes into the scene with like such jealousy. She's like standing by the phone while he's like taking the phone call, and then she's
Right.
just like okay, and leaves. I don't know. There's a lot of like with the cream soda
Yeah.
thing too. She like freaks out, but then there's never a scene afterwards where like they're talking about it again or like
Right,
where
yeah.
she's examining.
And then it cuts
Yeah.
back into the house, and there's like just 25 minutes of her folding sheets, and she's like slowly folding sheets.
Thought she was chopping carrots still.
Well, no, I mean earlier in the day, chopping
Oh,
She's
carrots.
okay.
making
Now she's folding
a
sheets.
roast.
Yeah. Ooh, is she making a roast, or is she really trying to liberate herself? Makes you think, doesn't it?
God.
So then, next day, we cut to the offices,
Right.
and yeah, and then Beverly D'Angelo's there.
Right.
She's there with her lawyer, and this is actually kind of like a funny scene too.
It's a
because
great
because
scene.
The way
It's actually good because
the way it's shot.
the lawyer, spoiler alert, is Peter
It's
Falk.
I feel like this is like one of the
Whose
moments
names
where
we
I
haven't
started
said.
really. I like the morgue, but also the scene like really sort of like picked up for me a little bit.
Yeah,
We haven't said Peter Falk's character's name.
Steve
yet.
Ritchie?
Steve Ricky.
Steve Ricky.
No one is named Steve Ricky.
This man is. Better believe it. An adventurer who looks like Peter Falk would be called Steve.
So the
Ricky.
lawyer shows up because like $5 million is a big payout. The lawyer is
Not
Peter
for me.
Falk with
Not
a
if you have a
shaved
podcast
head.
like this, by the way.
With the side. Is that a wig?
Does he
Yeah,
have a
but that
shaved
was-
head, or was
no,
it a
no,
bald
wig.
cap?
What do you mean? It's a
It's
bald
skull,
cap.
bald cap.
How
bald-
quickly does his hair grow back that he shaves it? Then like the next like 2 hours
Oh,
later.
that's right. That's right. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry I didn't really pay attention to the continuity in 1986's Big Trouble.
And he's Mr. Nagel. So so this is also when like Alan Arkin is like, oh, okay, totally.
An
like,
hour 15 into an 90-minute movie,
He's
Alan
like-
Arkin realizes something's wrong.
Yeah, like something is wrong.
Something is rotten.
And they agree that there has to be an autopsy
Right.
on the body.
Because Charles Durning playing the investigator is O'Mara, the investigator, is like something fishy here. He's like, what are the chances? What are the chances? Like 1 in a million that your husband dies in this like it's crazy. It's
And
like
he's
they
like,
don't
"You-
believe
you-"
it. They don't believe
yeah,
it
and
for
he
a
basically
second.
says you guys are lying.
And everyone watching the movie is like, yeah,
Of course, yeah.
we knew that.
It's called dramatic irony. You know what the characters don't know.
Okay, we're not
just
we're
saying.
not in class right now. We're not in class.
So
You guys read Hamlet? I don't know if you've heard of it, Hamlet.
and they agree, by the way. So then they also
William
agree,
Shakespeare wrote it.
And we didn't talk about Dr. Lopez. So there's an earlier reference to a Dr. Lopez
Right.
as clearly the doctor who is like in cahoots with
Correct.
the Rickies and this whole kind of thing. And they agree because he's on some sort of list.
Vaguely, like, his interesting character.
Yeah, so they're like, oh, okay, like Dr. Lopez will do the autopsy.
Right.
And then they kind of like, then they walk away, and Leonard and Steve,
Ricky, played by Peter Falk, going
yeah,
to the bathroom.
and Blanche have this scene where obviously they kind of tell him like about the entire plan. And this is also where, funny enough, he says like, so you didn't die. And he's like, no, obviously I didn't die. He's like, but who's the corpse?
All right.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
like, did you kill someone?
Yeah. And he goes, no, I just stole a body from the morgue.
Right.
Okay, but again, more questions I have. Did they take the face off the body after?
Face off
the body.
Yeah. Do you think this is the movie that inspired Nick Cassavetes to be in Face Off?
Oh, wow.
Clearly.
We have to do an episode on Face Off, and Kel has to come back and be like, guys, you have to stop recommending these movies.
That is deep, though. You're right. Shared cinematic universe. So this film shares a cinematic universe with
Face Off and Die Hard, two of the best action movies of all time.
Wow. So it is an important historical document.
It's really
and
important.
cultural document.
But yeah, I really wanted to know if they, in fact, took this man's face off. And
it sounds like they did, though. Isn't it kind of
and
like
if they did, then shouldn't
body?
he be a little bit worried about the people they're dealing with?
Yes, that's true.
No longer are they just like bad criminals, but are they like legit psychopaths?
Psychopaths, yes. Definitely possible.
And that sort of concerned me that he's like still in cahoots with them on some level and is like game for that.
He needs that Yale money, though, Kel.
We haven't come back to the fact that, all of this is to get his kids to go to like...
It reminded me a little bit of Breaking Bad in the sense of kind of...
Overrated. Overrated. That's an overrated show.
I've never seen it.
So that's another show where, that maybe to come back to Husbands earlier, where it's a lot of dude bros, George not included, watch that show and they're like, this guy's so cool. And they like clearly miss the point.
Yeah, no, the fan culture.
That's enough for me to hate it,
really
though.
shitty. I don't think that's fair,
There's
though.
a lot of shows like that at the same time, though. Like it's like Mad Men too, of these like, these broken men, but it's like so interesting and we like them anyway.
Yeah.
And it is a husband sort of thing, though, where it's like they're heroic in some sort of way and they're like idolized when you're like, we're critiquing this. Like, do you not understand that this is supposed to be a critique on some level?
Yeah. But it's also, again, it's a fucking critique on the American dream and kind of on capitalism and
Breaking Bad.
Yeah. Well, in this film as well, too.
This film, well, and I thought it was really interesting, like how much Alan Arkin's character gets like amped up, like as it gets more ridiculous, like he seems more game.
Yeah.
He becomes a very good villain.
Yeah,
criminal.
You're right.
That's
you're
a
right,
good
totally.
point.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
Which are that, like, you know,
kind of forgot that.
Especially
like
at the
they're
end.
like ready to, not to jump ahead, but they're like ready to blow up this fucking building, and he's like, we're doing it, and you're like, wait, how did you get to like, we're gonna scam this insurance company to like, we're blowing up a fucking building?
I'm totally with them too. I'm like, fucking do it, bro. Fucking destroy that fucking building. And then
let's jump back because that's I feel like we're gonna occupy a lot of time with the last 10 minutes of this movie because a lot happens in the last 10 minutes.
They go to the morgue.
And this Dr. Lopez is doing, it's like kind of has this preposterous accent. I'm going to put it out there. He kind of reminded me of Dr. Nick from The Simpsons.
Very good. Well, I mean, typically your corrupt doctors now remind you of Dr. Nick.
Nick.
It's hard to escape.
But this is before The Simpsons.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Dr. Nick.
The Simpsons has been on for all time.
30 years.
All time. Yeah. Like forever.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like
but there was a pre-Simpsons time and Big Trouble is in it.
I don't think so.
It's true.
It's hard. No, I totally get what Kel was saying.
It's very close, but I understand your point.
Yeah.
But this guy is kind of like a Dr. Nick.
And the way it's difficult to envision a world without capitalism, it's very difficult to envision a world without The Simpsons. It's impossible. It's impossible. So they show up to the morgue. O'Mara's there.
I just kind of lost myself for a second thinking about a lot of different things.
That's deep. That's so deep. Fuck yeah. So then they're
hey, Liam. It's your dad. Shh, fuck you. What'd I do?
I'm here to fucking tell you. You're going to fucking state college.
You go to the University of New Hampshire. It's affordable.
It's good at great grade. Shh, Liam. Shut the fuck up. Listen to me. All this kind of bullshit. Fuck it. Fuck hell.
You really get my dad.
So then they go to the morgue. They're going to perform the autopsy. And they wheel out what's supposed to be you think is going to be this homeless man's corpse whose face has been mutilated. It's Peter Falk lying on the slab in makeup.
A lot of makeup.
Yeah, and O'Mara's like checking out the body and he's like, oh yeah, it's Dr. Lopez. So how'd he die? He's like, oh, broken neck from falling off. And then he's like, you know what?
I think this guy's alive.
Which also I have to give the movie credit for because it does take turns that I did not expect.
Wait, can we rewind a second?
Yes, please do.
He's like examining the work of having sewn back on this man's
the face. That's right. Yeah.
And which, first off, like, how is this even possible?
Well, he says,
and where did the face come from?
His
There's
penis.
a lot of questions. No, the nose. But then, the doctor comments that his nose came from his penis, and O'Mara seems like very eager to like look at his penis and confirm this.
And he
Isn't
does
there a
look.
joke about like the nose rising or something like
Well,
that?
Yeah,
yeah,
Pinocchio.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
makes a
that's
joke about
right.
Pinocchio. But also, you like
Pinocchio joke.
it is supposed to be a joke in the movie too, because he does lift up the sheet to take
Right.
a look, and then he like laughs, like, "Oh yeah, I get it."
Yeah, it's definitely. But yeah, that whole scene was a little bizarre too.
So then he tickled. So yeah, O'Mara's like, "No, you know what I think? I think he's alive," and he starts tickling his foot.
And Peter Falk laughs
and
because
Peter
who
Falk-
wouldn't laugh?
Yeah,
But he makes his heart attack face. Did anyone else
Yeah, he
notice
does make
that?
heart
He
attack
does
face.
make the
That's a
heart
good
attack
point. That's a good point.
Some people aren't ticklish under their feet.
I'm ticklish under my feet.
I definitely am, but
Yeah,
I
Let's
know
all
for a
find
fact
out.
that
Let's
other
pause the podcast.
Pause the podcast for chips and tickle session.
Everyone touch each other inappropriately.
So then
Minute 72. Tickle Festival.
Yeah. Mental note: when recording with Liam next time, make sure to tickle his feet. So they all wake up and like, oh shit, we have to kidnap this
So sexy.
this guy.
that's clearly the logical
It
solution.
is. And well, actually, I was like thinking. like,
Charles Durning, O'Mara, the
they have to
insurance
kidnap O'Mara,
investigator.
yeah. But in all honesty, I was like, why didn't they never even mention the possibility of murdering him? I thought the first thing they were going to be like, oh no, we have to kill him because
Thank you.
obviously he has.
An amateur over there.
Sorry.
George is like, hang on, I'm just doing a podcast. No big deal. It's totally cool to just not put the mic in my face.
This is my first time and I figured it out, George.
Yeah,
so
this is
like,
really good.
come on.
This is every time though is the first time for me.
The first cut is the deepest. Baby, I know.
Damn straight. I don't know.
Cat Stevens doesn't say damn straight.
He says it all the time.
Do you guys know that Cat Stevens
doesn't,
song,
but
Father and
yourself,
Son?
Islam does.
My favorite lyric in that song is when he goes, hey, son, fuck yeah, fuck you, you're a fucking dickhead. You're going to college. I'm not paying for it. You
Fuck
have
you.
to go to state college.
So then we see them all in a car. It's Beverly D'Angelo,
Charles Durning tied up in the
tied up in
backseat.
the back seat. Leonard and it's
Peter Falk.
and it's actually kind of a funny scene. So at some point they like pull over because Beverly D'Angelo's like, "What the fuck are we doing? What's like the
Why did
next
we
step?"
kidnap this
Yeah.
guy?
And then they pull over and there's like this really kind of like funny scene where Beverly D'Angelo's like, she's talking to Peter Falk, her husband's like, this is all entirely your fault. And he's like, no, it's not. It's like, why are you blaming me for everything? And she's like, no, dude, you fucked up. You have no idea what you're doing. This is like not a minor snag. We really have like no fucking clue what we're doing. And there's a really
There's a Dick Cavett joke in this
there's
scene.
a Dick Cavett, and there's a really good Khomeini
She wants
joke.
to go do a community theater production
Yes.
with Dick Cavett.
Oh yeah.
What a good joke.
It was good.
Cal, get on that mic.
And-
Cal, you almost were just George.
Sorry.
You were like,
You almost pulled
yeah,
the George.
no big deal. Am I the only goddamn broadcasting professional in this group?
Technically,
Apparently.
yes.
Oh, that's a good point.
And
Technically is a very good way to put it,
and
too.
Leonard, and this is
Technically, you do know how to do this.
also, this is also where Leonard really starts losing it.
I really liked the physical humor in this scene as well, though, where he lays down in the middle of the highway or the road or
Oh, it's
whatever,
so
and the
good.
semi like runs over him but doesn't actually touch him.
Yeah, it's
It
really
was
good.
also really beautiful.
It's a really. This is also in the scenes of the movie. You're like, what the fuck is happening in
Yeah.
this movie?
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another moment when you go, this is a John Cassavetes.
This is a
movie.
John Cassavetes production.
So all I know about John Cassavetes is Big Trouble in Husbands. So just putting that out
What
there.
an amazing
And the Dick Cavett stuff.
And the Dick Cavett
Yeah.
stuff.
You're
what
an
a
expert.
great. You should do a podcast like where you now go through all the movies. We'll put it on our network.
I don't
and
know.
Then just be like, I
It
just have
also
to
it's also
respond to-
making me question my love of Peter Falk. A little bit.
Oh, that's right. Because
Wait, can we play-
Huge Wings of Desire?
Wings of
person, right?
Desire, yeah.
so
Is he
good.
in that? I'm just kidding, you guys. I'm just kidding.
I was about to throw this.
Hey, can we
bottle
do a
at your
quick?
head.
Can we do? So George and I did this at one point. Fuck, marry, kill.
Okay.
Oh.
John Cassavetes, Ben Gazzara, Peter Falk.
Oh yeah. I did hear this. I was thinking about it
She's
while
like,
I was
"Kill them
listening
all."
to the
Just like murder,
podcast.
kill them.
Could I murder them all?
Ugh.
That's a tough one.
From Husbands I can comment, I think.
Okay.
I think we kill Ben Gazzara.
Oh boy, that's fair.
Um
That's actually the right answer, probably.
even though he might be the gayest, but I'd still
Oh, I think he's definitely the gayest.
but I still think he's too closety. I don't think I can handle
He's
that.
also like
That's
a
fair.
domestic abuser.
like times 10. Well,
Well,
can
chances are all
I
three
just
of them
say
are in that
that I
film,
feel
mean.
like part of that is the rage of how I was viewing some of that is like the rage of like he can't be himself and
Yeah.
like he doesn't know how to deal with it, so he's
Yeah.
like taking that out on his wife, and like she's the problem because she's like some sort of like roadblock for him.
Right.
So kill Gazzara.
Kill Gazzara.
Thank you.
I think fuck Cassavetes and
Yeah.
Mary
Oof.
Fox.
I think is that what we?
Yeah,
all-
that makes sense.
I think that's
I
what
think
we
the
came
correct
to.
answer outside of that movie is marry Jenna Rowlands.
Ooh,
Kill all
but now
of
you're
them.
Kill all of them.
now
Yeah.
you're totally flipping the script though. So
Anyway.
then this is also great because this is the scene where Alan Arkin's like, we should go rob his house, and
Yes.
his house meaning
The home of Robert
yes,
Stack.
My house, Robert
Wait, so
Stack's house.
I didn't get that that's what he meant.
Oh.
I was surprised when Robert Stack showed up. Like I just thought they were going to rob
Well,
a
you
random
kind of forget
house.
Robert Stack is in the movie.
I thought he explicitly said though, oh no, let's go to my boss's house, and
I
Peter
might have
Falk is
missed
like,
that.
That's a great
so
idea.
what I actually
He looks
thought,
right
thought
at the
was
camera and
happening.
went, "Tell, we're going to Robert Stack's
Yeah.
house." It was very specific.
What I thought was happening was I thought that maybe the scheme is like so big that Peter Falk and Beverly D'Angelo's house was actually not their own. And that they were like
Oh.
scamming that too, and had just like happened to like fill it with a portrait
Well, there
of
is that
themselves
scene
to like.
earlier where
we-
they
we
leave
missed
the
that scene,
house.
yeah.
So I thought that maybe because maybe the exterior of the other house looks similar.
They look similar. No, they do.
And so I thought maybe that was part of what was happening, and then I thought like they were like robbing his house, but it wasn't his house because it was someone else's house. And then when Robert Stack showed up, I was like, wait, what?
So they go into the house and they're going through and they're like, okay, we're gonna rob it. Yeah, and they come across the statue and
I
like,
was wondering if the statue had some kind of like socio-political comment. Like I didn't know what the statue was. I was like, is that a famous statue? But I don't. Think
I
it
didn't.
was.
I mean, I'm not.
I don't
think
obviously
so.
a
I don't know
historian, but
anything
didn't
about that
recognize
stuff.
it as anything. Yeah, but they're like, oh yeah, that's a Michelangelo. Or Peter Falk is like, good eye, that's a Michelangelo.
There's no
let's take
fucking
it.
way that guy has a Michelangelo.
Of course not. So
No.
they grab it and they're
Those
like,
are in museums. They belong in museums.
oh, Indiana Jones. Yeah. So they're walking. Dun, 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 dun. So they're walking out of the house with the statue, and then hi, Robert Stack, come back home.
Oh
And
my God,
apparently-
Robert Stack is here.
Apparently, they are alive or dead. Dead, right?
Dead,
Definitely
dead.
dead. So then they, Robert Stack and his wife show up, and apparently
It's a surprise
it's
party.
A surprise party.
But the surprise party's happening, and they're all on the stairs, and
Yeah.
it's so cringeworthy.
Yeah, and obviously then they see them in the shadows trying to like sneak out with this statue, and this is kind of funny too because Robert Stack's like, "What are you doing?" So like,
I clearly stopped paying attention at this point because I didn't realize it was a surprise party either.
yeah, and they're like, "Oh, we're just like here, like hanging out," and Robert Stack's like, "Get the fuck out of my house, or else I'm gonna call
You
the
guys
police."
have to go.
Yeah, and then he's like, "Put back the Michelangelo, or like leave it there."
Did it also seem like to you folks though? It seemed like he didn't recognize Leonard.
At
him a
first
minute,
He
took him a
didn't.
minute.
Yeah, because
Okay.
he's kind of like in the shadows, and he's like, "Who are you?"
It just seemed like he, I don't know, like I sort of got the sense that it was more of a like you're so insignificant at my company that
Yeah.
like, I don't
Oh,
actually
yeah.
know who you are sort of
Totally.
thing. But yeah.
It would read. I mean, and that sort of makes
Because
sense.
the other thing,
I guess.
the other movie that this reminded me, especially in its ending,
Good Will
was
Hunting.
Office Space. Well, and of course, Good Will Hunting.
Right,
but
all
also
movies are
Office
Good Will
Space,
Hunting.
when they're not Office Space.
Office Space.
And I'll say why at the end of our discussion. So then they get back in the car, and
I don't know if this is a
I'm
discussion.
keeping you guys in suspense. They get back in the car,
What
and
showmanship.
Alan
ladies and
Arkin
gentlemen.
is like, you know what? We should go fucking rob his office. It's like, and Peter Falk's like, yeah, let's fucking do it. So then they go to the office, and this is again when the film takes like another turn. And they start trying to rob the vault, and they're breaking into the vault, and then it's suddenly out of nowhere, some dude shows up, and it turns out that he is a member. You say terrorist, I say revolutionary.
I
of the
wrote anarchist.
Would you say anarchist?
I thought they were anarchists.
Kel? Terrorist
Um,
revolutionary.
Get on that mic, Kel.
I
An-
mean,
anarchist.
sorry. Sorry, I'm
2
being
points.
George.
George did it for a longer period of time. George was like, "My name is George Fragopoulos. It's nice to finally meet you." Oh, am I supposed to be on the microphone?
Hey, Liam, are we recording? Liam? Is this how I show my mic?
Oh my God.
Liam?
He has it in his pants. It's in his pants. Hey, microphone.
Hi-yo. So,
I was thinking
Thoughts?
revolutionaries. I don't
Yeah.
think anarchists, but I was leaning away from terrorist for sure.
I definitely didn't think terrorists.
But also, they're such like a ragtag group.
yeah, totally.
I love how
Yeah, they're not very
Peter
well
Falk and
organized.
he are staring at each other.
Also, the dude is like, "Do you speak any language but English?" Which I also really appreciated. He
Yeah.
was like French, Italian, Spanish.
And it turns out that these revolutionaries or anarchists, what have you, I want to blow up this building.
Right.
And obviously Peter Falk and Leonard are against that because they're in the building. And hilarity ensues.
They seem sort of for it, though. They sort of seemed like, if we get our shit,
We got our
you guys
shit
can
at
blow it
first,
up.
Yeah. And then
But
O'Mara
then-
shows up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because Beverly D'Angelo lets him loose.
This is a great little ending, this scene, because they
Also,
could have all-
Well, I mean...
don't well.
Great in what
we-
way?
Well, and the fact that like they spin it. I love that they spin it, and they're like, "No,
Oh, I
we
hated
saved
it.
the day."
See, because I felt like that's where like the film really becomes reactionary.
Well, I think it does become reactionary because he like literally saves a corporate bullshit
That's
company.
exactly
yeah, but it's
why,
also
yeah.
clever in the sense that like that's probably how that would get spun.
Well, they find their way out of trouble. So
Right.
basically what happens
you know
is...
what kind of trouble?
Oh, what kind?
Big trouble.
Whoa, spoiler alert. Dun, dun, dun. So they...
Goodwill Hunting.
Yeah, basically they foil the terrorists or the revolutionaries or anarchists, what have you.
Anarchists, revolutionaries.
With O'Mara's help, who comes into the building.
Right. He runs, which is hilarious. He's a funny runner.
Oh wait, but so sorry. The like machine gun fire that
Yes.
he doesn't get hit at all.
Right, which I thought obviously is
That was
played
And
for
the
ridiculous.
sound was a little off on that
Yeah,
too.
it was really
which
weird.
struck
It was
me.
like, pew!
Although I did find that one scene funny where he comes across the first revolution and he's like, "Who are you?" He's like, "Who are you?" He goes,
Yeah.
"No, who are you?"
Yeah, who the fuck are you?
Like, who-
Fuck
who
you!
are
And they
you?
start, that's the
Yeah.
only time anyone says "fuck" in the movie. But they
I
just are
really
like, "Fuck
appreciated
you."
that though, and I was not expecting
Well, it's
it.
very well saved.
Because also remember that somebody lowered their breast like, "Who are you?" He's like, "Shut the fuck up, who are you?" He's like, "No,
Dad, is that you? Dad, I haven't seen you in 40 years.
Why are you talking about state college? Shut the fuck up, who are you? Fuck you.
We're really beating this to death.
Yeah, who cares? So, but yeah, it's obviously played for laughs. Also, like the fact that they can't like shoot him or hit him at all.
They
And
really
then,
can't.
And then the cops show up, and basically, yeah. And then the cops show up, and they're like, "Oh yeah, so you guys actually helped?" And O'Mara's like, "Oh yeah, actually."
And I helped.
Even though these guys have like been trying to commit crimes for the last like 72 hours, they actually tried to help.
I kind of felt like he said that partially so that they didn't end up killing him.
Like after the fact? Like
Yeah.
he felt threatened by them?
O'Mara?
Yeah.
Oh.
I felt like there wasn't so much a vibe of like, oh, they actually saved the day, even though all this other shit happened. It sort of felt like he still felt like worried for his life or like worried what was going to happen. I felt
Oh,
like
I didn't
he was
sense
like
that.
propping them up to be like, get them off. Like,
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense. I get that.
And then Robert Stack shows up and he's like, "Who do I think?" Or he's like, "How can I, And they say like, "Oh, it's Leonard and Steve."
Steve Ricky.
Steve Ricky. And yeah, and obviously Robert Stack's like, "Well, I'll do whatever you want, Leonard. Let me know." And obviously
And Leonard was never seen
and Leonard
again.
was never seen again.
I
You're supposed to do that
also,
in Unsolved
And he asked for his kids to go to Yale.
yeah, I had a question, another unsolved mystery. The,
It was definitely Bigfoot.
I never questioned it until Beverly D'Angelo's outside
official
and they're
narrative.
in the building. But I also wondered again, like when I was wondering if their house was actually their house, I wondered if they were actually married. Did anyone else question that?
Beverly D'Angelo and Peter,
And Peter
Falk.
Falk.
Oh, and Peter Falk.
Steve Ricky and
There's something about her interaction with the cop when the cops are going into the building that just made me feel like, wait, are they even married?
What did she say something in particular?
She says something about like, oh yeah, my husband isn't, but something about the way she conveys it. I don't know. Just felt I had this moment where I was like,
So they're just
are they even
grifters.
married?
They're just
wow.
con people in cahoots.
Yeah,
and
that's what I was kind of
Yeah, that's a
wondering.
good point, yeah.
Well, they do. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I feel like there's nothing that would make you think like they're definitely husband and wife, except for
There's
what they
n-
say.
And there's no sort of like physical affection between
They make out at
them,
one
or
point.
like, do
He
they?
kisses her, yeah, at some point.
Okay.
I
They do some
believe.
deep. There's some deep tongue in a little. early in
I
the
missed that.
movie.
Maybe
I
I
rewound
blocked it
I'm
out.
still watching it. Hang on, let me just pull it up
Yeah.
real quick.
Cut back to you cut back to Alan Arkin's house,
That's the
and
stuff.
the mom is just kind of just looking at the
iPad.
the iPad, just like
1986.
playing
All those iPads.
playing Candy Crush for 35 minutes. You could really feel her ennui, her life slowly unraveling.
Ennui.
And then the film ends with this concert.
Which is maybe the
I
most
said
John
funeral, I think,
Cassavetes. It's a
earlier, but it's a
You
concert.
did say funeral, and I was a little
It's
confused.
a long. It's a long.
I was like,
You know,
who died?
I wasn't even drunk back then.
You weren't.
I am now.
This last scene might be the most John Cassavetes scene in the movie because it goes on forever.
It does go on
does.
forever.
Are you gonna go back with her?
Oh, and this is also talk about also like this like very kind of like queer moment in the film. If there is one, it's this. So basically,
He's
yeah,
like, it's like, are
Peter
we gonna
Falk
go
turns-
adventure more?
they're sitting next to each other, not at this funeral, but at this concert, And Peter Falk is like, "Are you going back with your wife?" Basically,
Yeah.
like let's do
I thought
some
we
more
were
shit.
gonna go. Maybe we should go to L.A. and make movies.
Yeah.
Well, but also earlier in the movie, I forgot about this, but just looking at my notes, Peter Falk says to Alan Arkin the second time he sees him, "I was up all night dreaming of you," or something like
that's
that.
right.
Good catch.
Like, yeah. So I also want to, bring it back to that too.
Yeah.
So Peter Falk's feeling something for him
He is,
He's
yeah.
like,
And
"I
it comes
dreamed
across
about you."
at
at the very end.
and then like they kind of tussle. Like Alan Arkin like goes after him,
But then they hug.
and then they hug.
everyone's hugging.
and and O'Mara kisses I think Peter Falk. Like they all kind of like
Does he?
reconcile on the cheek.
And
there's
the woman uses a moment with
definitely
his
some
wife.
man cheek kissing.
There's some
Well,
magic.
after he's like, "Are you gonna go back together with her?" There's like this very like she turns her seat away.
the mom,
Alan
yeah.
Arkin's wife, the mom, turns her seat away, and then all of a sudden she's turned back to them and they're kissing and holding hands, and it's like a very abrupt shift, and it feels like a very it's a very John Cassavetes thing to be like, "Oh, we're gonna show them completely separated, and then we're gonna show them together again," but there's nothing in the narrative except for maybe the music and the son's performing. Like that's the like there's enough open space in that to be like, why is there this sudden shift?
Yeah, and a lot of that's over the credits, obviously. when the
Yeah,
credits are
but
rolling.
it's funny that John Cassavetes might have gotten in the only subversive-y thing in the movie in those final few moments when the credits are playing. When the studio execs are like, "Cool, we like this movie.
It's over."
Everything ends. Nora, it's okay."
So then the end. Yeah.
The end. The end.
So going back to my Office Space thing, I just felt much like Office Space kind of takes everything subversive in that film and then reverses in the last 5 minutes.
Does Office Space? It's been a long time. since I've
Yeah,
seen
because again, they're like going to rip off the company, and then they find out that they're like ripping off the company too well, and like, "Oh no, we can't do this, so let's give all the money back."
Oh yeah,
much
Mike
like
Judge
in,
is weird.
much like in this film, it had like the happy ending. Like it would have been amazing if somehow they could still get away. Like they could steal all that money, or they can steal all that wealth. They can still get away, and still blow up the building, and whatever the case might be.
So do you feel like
But
this
they have to
movie
save the day in this very kind of traditional way.
reinforces like capitalistic values?
Totally, yeah. Like the kids go to, and doesn't I think Robert Stack say something at the end about the kids going to like Yale and living up to their full potential? Some bullshit.
Yeah,
like
there's something
Mhm.
like that.
But I feel like the film sort of has to, right? I don't know. Like, I mean, it doesn't actually have to, but I'm just thinking about sort of like the time period and like the production company and like all this sort of stuff. Like if you made a film that like didn't uphold capitalist
Yeah.
standards, like aren't we, I don't know. It would have been an even bigger flop. I don't know. Maybe
It's
it would
also
have
an
been.
interesting movie to think about. I mean, it's too weird of a movie to be a hit, but it's also kind of a like one of the things we've talked about throughout the show is like, what are John Cassavetes' politics? And I think in some ways I think he's like maybe socially a bit, I don't know if he's conservative, but I think he's a little socially stuck in a time in a way of thinking. But I feel like his politics were probably pretty liberal, or let's say left of center. I mean,
He
he's much
strikes
more about
me-
collective community thinking than he is about like a kind of like corporate mentality. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Anti-corporate, but also
It's hard to say he's anti-corporate.
There's
but
parts of
he
him-
definitely
well,
was because he made movies
anti-studio
outside of a
system.
system, right?
Yeah, but also some other parts of his oeuvre, dare I say, that strike me also as
Don't say
potentially
it.
kind of like being like libertarian-esque about like this kind of overwhelming
I mean, he distrusted
valorization of like the individual.
any systems also. Yeah, no, he's
Yeah.
very much an individualist. At the very least, you could say he's an
Yeah.
individualist.
Well, also, but if he's so anti-studio, and this is probably the most studio film he's done because he's taking on
Yeah.
someone else's project.
Gloria,
and
at least he
Totally.
wrote,
Yeah.
yeah.
and the other two he wrote. He wrote Too Late Blues. He
One
wrote-
of them, not the other one. Not
He didn't write A Child
Waiting.
Is Waiting.
But this one feels like way more studio-y
Yeah.
Yeah.
than those two.
Well, those
do.
opening credits and the whole way that things.
The
designed.
sitcom music.
The sitcoms.
Yeah, it's a little weird. I mean, it's also like it's a sort of mythologizing to think he has to go out on a certain note. I mean, like I've had conversations with people, Peter Rinaldi, who's listened to our show for a while, but he was like, no, the last movie that John Cassavetes made was Love Streams.
Which I agree with. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but I feel like there's other weird examples of like last films or like I don't know. Because I write about queer sailors, I'm thinking about Carell. Like it's a horrible film, and it's technically Fassbender's last film, but it wasn't actually made by him. It was like like
Really?
he filmed it, but it wasn't. He filmed parts of it, maybe all of it, but it wasn't edited by him.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And it's sort of it's kind of an
That's like
awful
right
film.
before he died.
It's always
It's after he died. Well,
it was released after.
It
he
was
died.
released and
Oh.
like edited after he died.
That's always unfortunate to kind of have that last kind of note of a legacy like that be a
But so that's
shitty
what I was
film.
kind of thinking of. Like, it's very different, obviously. Like, it's still like in his wheelhouse. Like, it's still like crazy queer weird film. But you know, sort of thinking that like maybe you don't have control over what your last film is.
So do you feel like the politics in the end are very retrograde?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kel.
That's all I wanted. Because I feel like the introduction of the revolutionaries is like very exciting. Like I'm like, holy shit, this is about something I didn't expect it to be at all. But yeah, you're kind of like, okay, I guess that's...
Well, because again, it's the conventional thing of like, oh yeah, you should want your kids to go to Yale, and you should be willing to do everything to get your kids to go to Yale.
Well, but also like, couldn't he have still wanted that, and couldn't they have still blown up the building? Like, I feel like those things could have existed
That's a much
together,
more interesting
and
movie.
like, yeah, I think that would have been more interesting.
That's really
but I
good.
also felt like that, like I knew that wasn't going to happen. Like I knew it was going to be busted, right? Like, I don't know.
All the criminality is geared towards trying to show how fucked up the system is. So then to kind of not have any of their criminal kind of enterprises work out seems to suggest like, no, if you in fact just go along with the way in which the system is structured, everything will work out.
fine.
Yeah.
Right.
So like, just like the cops will save you, just go along with the plan. The revolutionaries are the bad guys. Don't worry about it.
So
Send your kids to Yale.
interesting within the the Cassavetes chronology. The film took 2 years to be released, so it might have been finished as early as 1984 because I believe it came out in 1986. And part of the issue was he fought the studio really hard on the editing and how the
that's
movie
really
was supposed to play
interesting.
out. Like I think that he was very, very. I mean, I think this was every studio movie he made, but I think he was just like he disowned it. Like weeks before it came out in the press, he was like, "Fuck this movie."
Yeah. Again,
which is a crazy way to
there's
think
like
about.
there's a cut somewhere that's just all about the mom.
Right, or there's a cut where the ending's different.
Slowly,
you know, there's a
losing her
more
mind.
subversive ending to the movie that maybe exists. I can't see Alan Arkin being like, "Yeah, good, I'm into this."
But then also at some point, I also thought like, okay, they're obviously not going to blow up the building because like, what kind of budget do they?
yeah,
like, blow up the
yeah,
building?
it's not that. Yeah,
It was going to be like really bad special effects, and you were going to see like a really small diorama like
I'd
blow
love
up.
it. I'd love it.
Yeah.
So Cal, which movie would you recommend? Husbands or Big Trouble?
Oh God.
Or the Dick Cavett
God.
show.
Or the Dick Cavett
If I
show.
possibly
Don't give her an out. I'm so excited.
Fuck, marry, kill. This, Husbands, or the Dick Cavett show.
Or Goodwill Hunting.
Well,
Marry Goodwill Hunting.
marry Goodwill Hunting.
That's gonna be the
and
name of
fuck
Cal
Goodwill
and I's
Hunting.
Goodwill Hunting podcast.
Marry Goodwill Hunting.
Cal.
Wait, so fuck, marry, kill. Husbands, Dick Cavett show episode, and what is this that we watched?
Big
Big
Trouble.
Trouble. Okay, definitely kill the Dick Cavett show.
Wow.
It's too painful.
More than Husbands.
More than Husbands.
Wow.
I don't know. I feel like
I mean,
there's more nuance
I like
on
the contrarian
Husbands.
take.
There is that moment.
There's a little more depth and a little more nuance.
Cassavetes calms down enough to say some interesting things.
So I guess fuck Husbands and marry Big Trouble.
Marry Big Trouble.
I would marry Big Trouble too, but I think I would kill Husbands and fuck Dick Cavett.
Dick Cavett himself or the entire show?
Sure.
I'd marry
Yes.
Beverly D'Angelo.
always doing the out.
I do. You give it. Kel, thank you so much for coming on and doing this thing.
Thank you for having me.
Do you have anything you'd like to plug? Tell us about. Where can we find your work?
Ooh, good question. So I make fabulous zines about queer sailors, if that's your thing, and also some other ones about just film stuff in general. I have one about Times Square and film, specifically looking at films that either talk about sex work or there's also some stuff about like porn theaters in general and porn in Times Square. And I have one about Sonny Corleone.
Yes.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
I can give you a copy, Liam, if you want.
Please. Oh my God, I want all of the stuff.
I love the one zine that you have where you print the letter from the like the print office that says like we can't print your work. This is kind of rather like graphic in nature.
Ooh,
and Kel
risque.
reprints it in one of her zines.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
Right.
so if you need a selling point for my first scene, Queer Sailors #1, Oh Captain, My Captain.
Dead Poets Society.
Also Walt Whitman.
Who?
I love Robin Williams' poetry.
In Goodwill Hunting?
in Goodwill Hunting.
But the cover to the first one is so explicit that it features a sailor at full mast, shall we say. and it was too explicit for Staples.
What's wrong with sailing?
Specifically? And
Staples
so
turned you down?
Staples turned me down because it was too
Fuck,
explicit.
You're like, cool, you have one store in New York City anymore, so I don't really know.
Yeah, so I reprinted it with a local print shop and included the email that they sent me because it felt like a thing I needed to do. So I have an Etsy shop if folks are actually interested in my crazy zines. It's hellotheresailor.etsy.com.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thanks,
all.
Cal.
I'm Liam Billingham,
I'm George Fragopoulos.
And I'm Cal Karpinski.
and this was
Oeuvre.
Busters.
Hey, Liam, fuck you.